Hey guys, this is Stewie from Cloud9.
Okay, this is episode 41 of Counterpoints, brought to you by Boomio, which apparently, for reasons that have yet to be revealed, has released all like the premium content for free. So you no longer have to pay, you can just enjoy it all. Now, my problem with that is I don't really understand the model for how they're going to make money. Maybe what they did is, because like a lot of people in esports, they look up to me, and that's why they want to be associated with me. They saw that my model is, I just give away all the content for free, but somehow people still pay me for that. Yeah, but you haven't thought that through, have you, Boomio? Because you were the ones paying me. So unless you can find yourself to pay yourself, it's not really going to make any sense, is it? Your model is absolutely laughable. It's like a child's model. But anyway, I don't even know how I'm supposed to do a commercial because, again, people can't pay for anything. So why are you sponsoring me?
Hey, enough about Duncan.
I know. It's the end of the commercial. Now proceed to the show. It's episode 41 of Counterpoints. Usual host, Thorin, known for my marketing abilities and brand ambassadorship. So anyone out there, jump on board as a sponsor. You know, don't feel obliged that you have to have a really good business model. I'll never bring it up on air or anything, honest. And keep the checks rolling. So, Moses, usual co-host. You know, that used to mean something, because here's what people don't know, right? Back in the days of By the Numbers, we had Moses on episode. It went really well, you know. It was great camaraderie, a lot of good laughs, you know. He used to do the odd podcast, the odd interview. So, you know, his time back then was sacred. It was special, you know.
It meant something.
But what I've learned now is Moses will literally say yes to any form of just Skype conversation. Like, if someone just DMs him, like, can you come on, Mike? He's like, yes. They're like, but I didn't even ask what. He's like, oh yeah, wait a second.
Do you know how fucking bored I've been in this break? Like, I never thought I would say it, but I have gotten to the point where I don't know what to do with my days and my time anymore. I even streamed Counter-Strike matches last night for nothing. I don't know why I did that.
Why did you do that?
You get so bored, you just started smearing Rogaine on his face.
Yeah. This has been a solid month of Rogaine so far on the face. It's going well. Yeah, I don't know. I guess just loving the game, Duncan. Some of us still love and cherish this game that's brought us so many good memories over the decades.
Okay. So he says that. So on the one hand, he says he loves the game, he cherishes it. But then when he has time off from working around the game, he doesn't know what to do. It's like, do you want to watch some VODs or something? No. I mean, like have some fun or something. No. But do you want to catch up on some old games? Like brush up on some of the stuff going on? Yeah, I'm saying I can't think of anything to do. I'd rather sit here and do nothing and talk to Canadian people and say a boot than actually ever play or watch this game. Also, what about streaming it for money? I'm in. So where do I start?
I just said I didn't get paid. I just said I did it for nobody. Goodness in my heart.
You don't have a sub button?
I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea.
No.
I'll hook you up.
No. The only subs
thanks,
you
launders.
get are pieces of bread with pastrami inside them and women with no self-respect. But enough about that. That's another meaning of sub, isn't it? It's like a submissive sexual partner. Listen, at least in this joke, he was straight. You know, there's another way that could have gone.
Have made improvements there.
Exactly. There's another way that could have gone. You remember that guy in American Gods who got with that gin? What a slag.
Oh yeah. That was a fucked up episode, wasn't it?
It was straight anal in the first date.
Yeah.
And then fell in love with him. What a chump. But enough about that. Spoiler for that TV show you might in fact watch. Spoiler is a lot of gay shit. Then again, representative of the population nowadays, isn't it? So PC and all that. Right. Anyway, so someone who hasn't, to my knowledge, fucked a gin is Launders. See that segue? And if you have, just keep it to yourself or be in American Gods Season 2. Your choice. So Launders, obviously formerly of Yahoo Esports, now teasing everyone with his new videos that he's doing. And he's back on his grind. He's making that quality content.
Mm-hmm.
Also for no money. Or is there something in place? Is this just going to be for your own YouTube channel while you figure out what's going to happen in the future? What's the plan at the moment?
Yeah, but I think awkward time. But yeah, I think it's just going to go up on our YouTube channel. And then we have another 10 play breakers set to release. That's going to be on a live stream, on a live broadcast. over the next 3 months. So it'll be seen by a lot more people, which is really cool.
Okay. 10, because obviously, like, Cloud9 only played 10 good games over the last year, so, you know, the content, you're already stretching it pretty thin there, you know.
Yeah, I'm not sure Cloud9 is going to make an episode after this roster change, but we'll see.
Ooh, okay. Teasing us, right? We'll go back. We'll circle back on that one. A little moment of almost disparaging sort of needle there from Launders towards Cloud9, because obviously they've kicked his favourite player, Shroud, and he's angry about that. He's salty about that. So, our guest for this episode is cadiaN. And cadiaN comes from the Danish Counter-Strike scene. Now you're thinking to yourself, Danish Counter-Strike, yes, the best in the world. You know, they've got Astralis. He's never been on that team. They've got North/Dignitas. Not really ever been on that team either. They've got Heroic. Was on it for like a minute. You were there for like a minute, right? And then they teased it like maybe they were going to bring you on. But then also they did do that classic move where when you don't sign the person, you're like, oh, he was just standing in. No, there was never any plans to sign him. And then the person's like, that's a shame. Well, and then you have to pretend as well, like, no, I knew I was just standing in. Yeah, it's fine. Didn't even want to go anyway. Anyway, see you guys. I'm going camping with my brother. See ya. And you just leave. And then fuck those guys. Losers, aren't they? Can I please still join? No, okay, right, yeah, fuck you. Is there any other?
So welcome to the show.
No. See, you've made the classic mistake there, Launders. You thought, right, well, that's the rock bottom. That's the punchline of the joke. No, that's we're halfway down now, mate. Because below, you have to remember, below Heroic, there's a below Heroic. This is how big Danish CS is. Below Heroic, you had those two teams. You had Tricked, which is Hunden. No, for real. Like, that's not a joke. He's on that team. Listen, Dosey's allowed to be a meme and be a real player. He fucking won a major. Maybe Hunden's next. I don't know. So Hunden has that Trick team, and then there was the Singularity team. Now this is where it gets confusing, guys, because Singularity team now is Tricked, and then Tricked is nothing. And you were gonna join Tricked or something, right, cadiaN? Was it something like that? But then that also, maybe you weren't gonna join them. Something like that, right?
Pretty much. I mean, I would say from the intro and from you starting to read out in this kind of voice, I was sure that I was going to get more burned than I ended up getting. So thank you for that, Thorin.
It's a long episode, cadiaN. It's a long episode.
Long way to go, obviously. Never been a part of Astralis, never been a part of North. I mean, obviously played with some of the players before they got to the level that they are at now.
Yeah. Basically, just go back and look at the old majors, the ones where they used to go out in the group stage. He was in some of those teams.
3 of them, 3 majors, 0 wins. Man, it's rough times.
You were on. You played a tournament on TSM, not when they were Danish, when they were North American.
E-League, so. You did all right in that one, actually.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah,
You're pretty fucking good as a 6th for Heroic as well.
You know, that's I'm nearly gonna make an F-bomb already. You know, I was gonna come to the heroic part, which is...
By the way, can I just clarify? In no way is, swearing not allowed. I mean, I repeatedly referred to gay, genie-based anal sex in the intro. Like, you can say whatever you want on this show, mate. Although apparently we will be demonetized. In fact, even by saying demonetized, that's a paddling. Just being demonetized right now, haven't we? In fact, they've demonetized us 3 times because I've said it that many times. I've actually had to pay them $1,000 to put the episode up.
Fair enough. Then, to put it directly to you, the heroic situation was pretty fucked up. The first time when I was initially approached, at that point it was by Valde, and then by email, the owner or the refresh, Nikolaj Nyholm, was to play as a stand-in for the IEM Katowice qualifier, which was said to be really goddamn difficult. They've decided to part ways with Freeze, and they, to my knowledge, at this point, they were negotiating to get Yugi, right? And to put it out there, obviously, Yugi probably has more raw skill than me. So, them negotiating with him, but still trying out with me while I was with Rogue. We had a 1 week break while Tensky was on vacation. Everything just made good sense for me to try with them. And we played at the boot camp and things went well. To to my experience, I think it's one of the hardest, if not the hardest, online qualifier we had for a tournament with G2, Navi, I think Fnatic as well was in there, and mousesports. There were like 4 or 5 teams from top 10 in the world, and yet we managed to be one of the 2 or 3 teams who made it. So that was quite good. Like performance-wise, individually, I performed well as well. Stat-wise, the 3rd best. Not that stats really matter, but it's still a telling throughout a long qualifier. And whatever, all that came down to then we qualified. I knew they were still negotiating with Yugi. It was some on-off time. They ended up telling me that they bought Yugi from Tricked, and I was like, that's fair and square. Didn't really get pissed at that point, honestly. Also because I felt like I did what I was able to do, you know? I did a good showing. I was not disappointed by myself. And then 4 months later, everything just repeats itself. They lose Valde, and I'm actually initially talking with Valde, pre him leaving Heroic, or getting benched, call it whatever you want, about creating a team. And he ends up getting benched. They asked me if I can help, and I say yes. And again, I do very well in the qualifier, and I end up practicing with them after the qualifier. And then all of a sudden they're like, we also want to try out another guy if that's okay. And I'm like, can't really say no to it, of course. And they end up picking the other guy, even though practice-wise and qualifier-wise it went well. So to be honest, it was fucked up and a big disappointment. But at the end of the day, that's also how it works sometimes.
So what, like, if you feel like, I mean, you did play well. I watched everything. You played really well. What was it then? Do you feel like you weren't getting along with people?
Wait a minute. You watched all of cadiaN's, right? When's Playbreaker cadiaN coming? Where's that? Why don't you help a brother out? Listen,
hey,
you know what it's like
I
to be
think that
unemployed.
would be more of an on the radar, actually.
Oh, okay. He's not ready for his Playbreaker yet. He's on the radar, right? Yeah, launders, do that. If you're a real bro, what you'll do is make a thing, like pretend like cadiaN never played before. Be like, there's this new player in Denmark who's coming up, and look, and then you break down some of his skills. Oh, some people say he's actually not that bad at the game, even though he's toxic.
No. Inside
sources.
To be honest, the thing about being toxic, I think, came more from my young age. Is it true? This is one of the first things I heard about you, cadiaN. I heard that like every other pro-level Danish player was a member of a Facebook group that was just called like "fuck cadiaN" or something mental like that, or like "don't ever play with cadiaN." Like that was actually like the name of the group. Like you were like that thing where Ronald Reagan once said that it'd be great if aliens invaded because it would unite all the peoples of Earth. Like you're the only thing that could unite like all the disparate Danish scene. Yes. No, basically I was in the international scene. I was at that point not really pushed out of the Danish scene, but I was playing with mousesports after playing decently at like the major BIOC and the major, the first one. And then we played these casual cups, you probably know, with all the teams. And I got into an argument with someone who to this day in Denmark is a millionaire, probably, Device. About like normally it's the guy who's like approaching, he's paying, and sometimes
sorry mate, he's lost a few 1v1s with Giuliano as well, to be fair, so at least it only cost you a little bit of pride for a day, mate.
Jesus Christ.
Oh god.
Anyway, keep going, good friend of mine, don't worry, it's all fine. It's all
good.
Yeah, keep going.
So to some point, like the guy who's paying, because if you don't win, it's not like the other guys is gonna pay you the amount that you invested, right? Okay. So I invested some money, we won something, it's honestly not a lot, maybe 100 euros. I kept it, he wanted his percentage, which was like maybe 20 euros or something, and he got a bit angry, but it was nothing serious at the point, or not to my knowledge at least. So basically, people were riding the wave a bit, also because he's obviously popular and probably the best player, especially at that time in Denmark. But no, I've not really had the experience of like people saying that that's the reason they don't play with me.
Okay. Right. So as we break down some of the games here, cadiaN is someone who also, you see him sometimes on analysis desks. So in theory, he's going to give us the real shit. He's not going to be like all those ridiculous pro players who just like say everything nice about all their friends and like, pretend like none of the teams are bad or anything, Obviously, what I'm talking about there is just fantastic analysts. That's why every pro player who retires should instantly go to the analyst desk, because we all love hearing about how every team's brilliant, right? No, we don't. They're shit. They're all shit.
But feel free
that might be hyperbole, but okay.
Feel free to talk up heroic teams and heroic players in case you ever want to get on that roster.
Yeah, well, basically...
he's tried twice. Third time's a charm.
Maybe, hopefully. I mean, why not? I mean, after the second situation, I told myself, like, if they... Also, they like, for example, the minor qualifier, like, they played maybe 2 qualifiers without me. They didn't make it. And the 2 qualifiers that played with me, they made it. So I'm thinking statistic-wise here, you know, I should be playing the next qualifier again. Yeah. And to that degree, like, I was thinking to myself that if they asked me one more time, like, theoretically, I shouldn't be playing it without getting a contract in my hand. But then again, I also look at it from another perspective, which is both of the times I played with them, I've done a good showing. So, I mean, maybe I didn't secure myself a contract, but to a certain degree, I still showed that at that level, I still belong, in my opinion.
Here's the thing, though. This might shock people, but, you know, I've been pulling some strings behind the scenes. Almost got you into a pretty fucking good team, right? Almost. Keyword almost. I can't go any further than that. But listen, it was pretty good. It was better than all these teams are talking about now.
Could be.
Now, on an entirely unrelated note, Launders, why are you down on the new Cloud9?
I think the 2 players, Rush and Tarek, are both better or more valuable than Shroud and Nothing. But you sacrifice chemistry first of all, so that's a huge hit. And then on top of that, you have, I think my main problem is that you have 5 players now who wouldn't be stars on other teams, or who would be stars on other teams. And I don't think it's necessary, and I'm hoping it's not the ego that's the problem, because I feel like from what I've heard and stuff, that Rush and Tarek are both good teammates and they're both really smart players. And Cloud9 never really had someone who was like intrinsically aggressive enough to be a true entry fragger. Like, I think originally Shroud was used as an entry fragger by Sean Gares because he clearly had the best aim and the best mechanics. Was like, why not send this guy out first? He'll be most likely to get a kill. Sure. But if you watch Shroud play, he was always very careful. He would clear every angle as opposed to 3 out of 6. And he just really wasn't willing to run. So that was a big problem. And then they never really solved that problem until Freakazoid. And now that he's obviously not on the team and he has his own flaws, Rush and Tarek are probably going to be better at that role. But I don't think they have, I'm not sure that they have, number one, enough leadership. I'm sure Nothing helped quite a bit with his experience. And also maybe a teammate or 2 who are willing to not be stars. If, I think they'll be pretty good about it, but I don't know if they'll be completely selfless. So I don't know for sure, but
I know I heard from a little bit of a birdie doing the talk show with the Canadians the other day, Duncan. This is why I say yes to these things, is that Rush is the player that's kind of been tapped to become more of the that passive, throw your nades for your teammates, kind of support everybody role. So he's going to be taken away from the entry fragging.
Wait a minute. So they've signed Rush. Yeah, probably the best entry fragger in NA. Admittedly, not that much for the last few months. He was pretty kind of underwhelming in Optic at the end, and he's gonna completely role swap.
Yes, that's what the Canadians told me on the episode.
That's weird.
And so right? Stewie 2K is going to be the entry fragger.
So I'm assuming it'll probably be Tarek will be still one of the guys who's pretty aggressive. Stewie will probably initiate a lot still. I imagine how it'll work out is it'll be Automatic and Rush being a little bit more of the passive players. That seems, especially for Automatic, I think that's kind of more in tune with his play style. I think he's been highly aggressive because Cloud9 need him to be when they had Shroud and Nothing on the roster. But I imagine he'll go back to being a little bit more passive. Rush will be there with him, and it'll kind of be Tarek and Stewie initiating most of the contacts. That's how I imagine it would play out if Rush is truly going to be that support backup player. Yes, it's super tilting to be quite frank. Because I really like Rush, and I thought Rush being that force, that kind of a force and entering into bomb sites is kind of what unlocked Optic at the end of last year. And I still want to see it, So I mean that's kind of my big worry about this Cloud9 roster is really that role confusion. Yeah.
Because the part that makes the least sense about that is I thought the good part of Rush, Johnny, and I thought, right, what's great is they would presumably run Stewie 2K and Rush as like a 2-man entry unit, and then actually I thought that could make up for the fact they don't have a real in-game leader, because if you just play a very fast-paced game and you have really good entry fraggers, you can get a lot of the round out of the way before you have to have a really sick and set tactic and smokes and all the rest of it. So actually, it seems a little bit more bizarre, if anything. Like, actually, if you look in his career, Tarek hasn't really wanted to be an entry player most of his career. He's almost sort of like resisted that in some weird sense, you know.
Well, one thing I will say about Rush is, like, we're talking about the T side of entering, but also the CT side. I think he has more value than most people see. He likes to play a lot of the difficult positions, in my opinion, such as drop on cobblestone. And that's not a position that you can bring normal kind of star players into often, I think, because they want to play in the more active zones where there's more able to be this kind of playmaker, where drop is mostly a really steady position to just sit there and wait. And they're going to be able to take it no matter what. And you'll have to sometimes just lean back and say, they're there, I can't fight it. And he's good at that.
Okay, I have a question for you then. So if he would, in this case, be like replacing Shroud, because Shroud is, maybe they wanted someone to, if they're going to have someone play passive and that's Rush, then apparently he's replacing Shroud. Shroud was really good at CT side, right? Like he was actually, his mechanics are on point. He was good with his nades. He didn't seem to get nervous on CT side, where it seemed like maybe he got a little bit flustered on T side or something. So where's the upgrade there?
I think CT wise, I mean, I might, for the longer part of like what I've seen from the two, I think Rush has a little bit of a higher skill ceiling. I mean, Shroud's mechanics and aim, he's been really good, especially in the late part here of Cloud9. Mm-hmm. But from what I've seen, Rush was such a good force, and like. We sometimes try to take some of the CT setups from Cloud9, for example on Mirage, where he's holding B. He would just be playing some off angle from like short position or Edward, which we tried, and our players could really not make it work. But he has the ability to somewhat just completely tunnel vision on the aim and just not be surprised when somebody comes out, no matter what the timing is. And I don't know if Rush can be equally good on all spots in terms of that. And also, like, just to justify in the terms of the Terrier side of being an entry fragger, I think with how the dynamics is and how the meta game is, I think every player needs to be very active, and I think that he should be able to get his fair part of Terrier's duels as well.
Also, the other problem is that he was kind of forced into it because Shroud actually stepped down to go pro in PUBG, right?
Here's the thing though, Launders, the part I'm confused about is when you made that point that well, I mean, listen, PUBG's the ideal world for him, isn't it? Because like 999 people lose that game. So, you know, you have to realize half the people lose the game in Counter-Strike, and he was losing all the time. So the odds just didn't make any sense, did they? Now, just if you can't beat him, go to a game where even more people are losers.
So this is less blame on you.
Listen, that wasn't a point or anything. It was just pure flame, wasn't it? It was flame that backed into flame that led to some flame. And you were like, what, is there a point coming at any point? No point. So anyway, what I was going to say was this, Lawners. When you said the point that they all have or like could be a star player on another team, which is clearly the case because they have been at different points in their careers. The thing is, though, that's actually one of the things I thought was an upside about this lineup when I saw it announced. Because to me, the only time Cloud9 actually worked as a team was when they played like heavily, I won't say like purely individually, but like there was a lot of freedom individually for most of the players in the team, it felt like. Like people like Skadoodle and Shroud don't seem to want individual freedom, so maybe they didn't take advantage of it, but the other players absolutely had a lot of freedom in what they did. And I could see that working. Like if I'm an NA team right now, I mean, Moses, his rant is on Reddit as we speak about how NA doesn't have many in-game leaders, etc. Well, one of the benefits of the modern era is if you don't have an in-game leader, but you have like some pretty skilled players, you can play like a very simple style, and that might at least to some degree work. So in a sense, I could almost see that this being like a better way to cap out what you currently have in Cloud9. But I would definitely agree, there's no progression here. Like I don't know how you go further than that. You're basically only going to go as far as the individual players can take you. Like I don't know really how they get anywhere beyond that, especially because in a world, right, where you're going to keep Stewie2K as your leader, if he's going to change his style of being a leader, you'd need to go the other way. You'd need like players who are very specific. Like if they got like Kiyashima or something, that's like, oh, ooh, that's interesting. Maybe they could do something different, you know. But it does seem like they're just going all in on what is already their style of play.
Yeah, that's true.
I will say Rush is the kind of player who would dedicate himself and is willing to kind of switch up his role for the better of the team. Like he's someone that I think could actually get away with it. So this could still work. I think in terms of their in-game leader, I know in North America there's just nowhere for Cloud9 to go, and I think Stewie is kind of like looking at options probably for an in-game leader and just said, there's no one I think can do a better job than me, or like no one that's shown they can do a better job than me. And I'm fine with him as an in-game leader at the moment, just for one simple fact, and that's been that he's always met every challenge along the way. You know, like he joins this Cloud9 team and everyone's like, oh, fucking Stewie, like coming from rank S, never played in a pro match before.
Okay.
This guy's got to get fucked, stepped up to it. Then he's the in-game leader, and we're thinking this is too much responsibility for a young player. He steps up to that, and then we're like, oh, they only do fast strats, and they only do strats focused around Stewie. And then they get slow, and they get to the finals of Cologne. So, I mean, every single time there's been criticism and been a question mark about what his improvement is going to be, he's met it. So, in that sense, this is kind of like the next challenge that he'll have to meet, because he is going to have to find a way to call plays for someone else. He can't just be the in-game leader who says, this is what we're going to do as a team on the T side, and it's all predicated around my opening move. Now you have Tarek, now you have Rush, you have two guys who like to make their moves, and as long as an in-game leader he can kind of learn and speak with them and learn how to incorporate them into the T side, I think they can do good things. But this is going to require a learning process for a lot of these players.
Okay, so he's a very reactive player then. You know, whatever the criticism is, he shows it to be wrong by doing the opposite. So, you know, I like you said, he started out, people thought he wouldn't make it as a pro. He did make it as a pro. He's killing it. Then they were like, you can't be a leader. You're new to the game. You're a greenhorn. He made it anyway as a leader. Then they were like, you know, you've got to learn how to do actual strats. And he's like, oh, okay, do strats then. And then they were like, and finally, you know, obviously you can't keep playing with Shroud forever. He's like, joke's on you, motherfucker. I'll ruin my own career. I'll tank the whole thing. They were like, yeah, but the thing is, you're such a winner. You're going to need to change places. Like, am I? Or maybe I'm just not going to be a winner. How do you like that? Let me try that for 6 months. And now we end up here. So here's the question then. What is the reverse psychology now? Like, oh, you can't win in a team with loads of star players unless you ruin them all. I'm like, well, see what I do with Rush here. Tarek, he's going to be coming up with all the mid-round calls.
I mean, the only problem for me with these kind of teams is that you said it, launders, right? It's all people who should be star players in other teams.
Yeah.
And that's why some people are, no matter what, going to drop in stats. And at the end of the day, 98% of the community solely purpose the decision on like if someone is good or not on stats. And unless you're winning all the time, like sometimes SK is, you're not going to have everyone like above 1.0 rating. So that's why someone is going to be able to drop, because, I mean, Rush is not the highest rated player. Like, I think he's 104. I'm not entirely sure, but around that area.
It's dropped off a lot in the last year.
Yeah. But like
everyone on that Optic team dropped off.
Yeah, someone is going to go down, and someone is going to underperform in that sense, you know?
So I've got a question for you then. One of the reasons, supposedly, why Elige was going to leave Liquid and then did, and then ended up back on them anyway, and everyone pretended like, oh, what do you mean? Nothing happened. He was here all along, even though he clearly wasn't, is because he might have been a player who joined Cloud9. But supposedly, for some weird reason, all these Optic moves you've heard of in the last few months where like it might have been Russian Mix all have gone to Liquid, for some reason they all have like some package deal component to it. Like, in this package deal, does anyone actually know? Was it actually Rush or Tarek that they targeted initially, and who is the one who's like the part of the package, as it were? What's the logic for that?
No clue.
I have absolutely no idea about who would have been brought first. To be honest with you, I haven't heard a single thing about that. It does feel like it was kind of a package situation, though, doesn't it? But I don't know. I know from talking to some of the ex-teammates and everything that Tarek is apparently one of the best teammates that players have played with, like in terms of like his attitude and in terms of, you know, actually working with him in the game and as a player. And he's like a positive energy, positive attitude guy during the game that people just want to play with. So if anything, I don't know, but I know, like, I'm sure Rush was like, I want to play with Tarek more, you know, I still want to play with him.
Yeah, I have a feeling it was Tarek and then a package deal. I know that like Stanislaw tried to, or like Liquid tried to get, was it Mixwell and Rush?
Yeah.
At the same time, and then couldn't do that. So.
They've got to be pissed, by the way. They're like, what the fuck? 1 month ago, we tried to make this happen, and they didn't pull the trigger, and now all of a sudden, these guys are bolting off to different teams. They've got to be fucking furious. That team would have been sick.
Yeah.
So question for you, Thorin. Talking about package deals, would it have been a better package for Cloud9 if they were to get Elige and Stanislaw as an in-game leader?
I think far and away. Like that would be a sick move. Imagine how hyped you'd be if that move went down. You know, like I actually think even like
if you move Stanislaw to any NA team, it'd be an improvement.
I think that would just be a really great move. Not like it frees up UTK a lot. You know.
Yeah, Elige as well, right? Like, they both have that quality.
Yeah, there's zero chance that ever would have happened though. Like,
the problem is, Stanislaw's obviously all in on Liquid, isn't he?
Well, it's not even that, but if you're even the Liquid organization, look how much money you've invested in terms of buying out JDM, bringing Zeus over, buying Stanislaw out, getting him out of his Optic contract, and then you just let Elige and Stanislaw get away. Like, you effectively just kill your own Counter-Strike team after investing all that money. Like, I don't think there ever would have been a chance that Liquid let those guys go.
That's also the weird part about the move. Like, I realize no one thinks this way when you make a roster move for obvious reasons, but if you had also taken Elige, you basically just kill Liquid dead. Like, you just ruin them. Like, who cares about ruining Optic? They were already, unfortunately, a train wreck the entire time since Stanislaw left. You know, in fact, that was the most disappointing thing about that team to me. It's because they kept waiting for the perfect fifth man to come along. It felt like it never started. It felt like it was constantly like, oh, well, I wonder when the real Optic's going to begin. And then they just kept changing the fifth player. And what a nightmare that was.
I mean, the reason was that just highlights in-game leader problems in the region, right? Because they were looking for an in-game leader for 6 to 7 months, and that's why they kept bringing in Hayes. They he's not like some world-beating in-game leader, and he's not like cream of the crop or anything in that role, but he can at least do it to a degree where you have someone consistently calling tactics and consistently being an organized voice during the games. But I mean, they wanted to find a more concrete in-game leader. It just never happened. And if you look at that roster, what was it? Tarek, Rush, Nath, and Mixwell, like none of those four guys were going to take up the in-game leading role and just say, fuck it, I'll be the one who does it. Like it just, I think they all tried at some point. But
I have a question, Moses. Like, where does this haste being an in-game leader come from? Because like I don't know that much about him, but for example, on the old CLG team, I know that like the main in-game leader was FNS, right? FNS, yeah. And the second one was like Cutler.
Yes.
So that theoretically must mean that Haste must have been the third choice if they were to go that way. So how can he all of a sudden be picked up to being this kind of...
Well, first of all, they brought him in to be a coach originally. And then when they lost Stanislaw, he kind of just naturally slid into that role. And they kept him because, he'd done in-game leading on CLG, and he was the only one that had experience doing it for like a longer period, kind of like... And Cutler especially, like you watched him drop off individually as an in-game leader, so they had to get it over to Hayes when he was on CLG. But... after they lost Finesse, I mean, Hayes was kind of the only real option. And I think it's just one of those situations where it just, once he was an Optic and once he was the coach and once they had that open slot, he just kind of had to step in as the ringer and do it. But it was like that awkward scenario as well, where like, they were very open, like he's as the fifth and he's the coach, but he's playing as the in-game leader, but they're still looking for a fifth to slide him back to coach. And I don't know, like that whole Optic situation. I try not to use like this year of Optic to judge any of those players, because that's such a fucked up scenario to be in for that long. Like you can't blame players for underperforming in a situation where they don't even know who their fifth is going to be. They don't even know who's going to be on the team. And then you start getting offers from other squads. You start like Mixwell wants to go back to Europe. And I mean, if you're a player in that scenario, you just naturally you just start sucking. Like I think anyone would in that situation.
I think
so here's
go on.
No, go on if you got something to say.
I'm just the thing about playing with your coach, which I never really understood, is people will go there and say, yeah, but this guy understands our tactics and etc. But for example, also when people do it at events, if they have the opportunity to bring in other player who will obviously have a higher individual skill seeding, is that not only do you lose individual level of bringing in a coach who obviously should not have the same individual level as the four other pro players, but also you lose the guy who should be having the overview, who should be the one preparing, who should be the one who is like guidelining the in-game leader. And I think he maybe loses some of that extra like breathing room when he's actively playing himself. So I think the only reason it worked with Hayes is because he was pretty recently like still competing, right? Like he was competing at the end of the previous year, so it was just kind of like he hadn't been out of the action for too long.
Okay, so here's the weird part though, is that this should have been the move to kill Optic completely. Like, they would be in such a bad position right now. If you think of the players that would even be available, there's basically no one, because Team Liquid still kept their team. Cloud9's taken 2 of their players, and they still got all the same problems. No in-game leader. That when they would have lost Tarek, they would have lost Rush, who was obviously a legacy player in the team. But what's mad is Optic actually have played what was available with the cards left pretty well, it seems like, because obviously their big problem the whole time they had an NA squad was that it has seemed inevitable that it wasn't will Mixwell go back to Europe, it was when. Can they keep him for 3 more months, for 6 more months? They were hoping the whole time if we get a good lineup, maybe that keeps him, But people don't realise the rumours of him going back to Europe had begun before they even won E-League. Like, that was almost like, I feel like that just settled him for a little while. Like, right, well, see how this works out, it's going so well, we've got the major coming up. So actually, in a way, I think Hex has actually played it pretty well, that now he's gone with the idea of, right, well, since one of my only remaining good players wants to go to Europe, why not just send him back to Europe, keep him on the team and make this European team, which, yeah, it hasn't been officially announced, but the names we're hearing floating around, that's not a bad team, actually. That's not too bad. And here's a little detail I've got for you, okay? So you might have seen I did a tweet, right, where I was this is just nothing I'd heard behind the scenes, right? I was just purely doing the sort of thing you do. Like, when you look at a roster, right, everyone likes to play sort of imaginary GM. Like, oh, imagine if you'd have done this instead. And when I saw the lineup, which was, a bunch of the kicked players, maybe it was like Alu and Magisk and Freiburg and Mixwell, and who was the 5th one?
HS.
Yes, HS. That was it. Because the HS one's the one that's kind of out of place, right? You're like, what? He's only even been on the Penta team for a few months, and even then, he's a very new player, and also there's no obvious in-game leader on this team. They claim like Freiburg will be or something. So I just thought to myself, right, well, one of the people who's kind of been left out of all the roster moves is obviously Angel, because he didn't end up being able to go to Na'Vi. He's stuck in Hellraisers, but then Hellraisers lost Sticko, and based on the fact that Hellraisers is an international team, but they haven't gotten any big names in, you can kind of tell they're just not in a position like a mousesports, etc. phase to make the big signings, so they kind of are a bit fucked. So I was thinking, right, imagine if you just took that 4-man team and put Angel in as the in-game leader. Now, obviously, not possible because, again, for some reason he can't leave the team or the buyouts are too large, and a little bird told me that actually was the move they were trying to make. It was going to be those 4 players instead of HS. It would have been Angel as the in-game leader. That's what they tried to make. Think what a fucking banging lineup that would be, just out of nowhere. Because you've got, in theory, it's all the cast-offs, except Angel. It's all the rejected players. That would actually be a team that looks pretty good on paper.
Yeah, and they were all the best player on their team at one point, and so they all have those skills. The only question would be like, can an international team be successful? And I think we obviously have FaZe, and we obviously have, there's one more team that's like
Mouse.
All 5 members, Mouse, right? And they're both really good. But I think historically, you can expect to see roster changes more often than not on an international team.
Sure.
So, but yeah, that would be really good. That is the main problem.
So what do you think of that team without Angel then? The real team, which apparently, again, not confirmed, but we don't need official confirmed news. We can talk about whatever we want to talk about,
Fake
as
news.
we have evidenced. So what do you think of that lineup if it exists and comes to be?
I expect that. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
The thing is with a team who doesn't have an in-game leader and doesn't have anyone who's done it before it's so difficult to start, Maybe you'll start practicing and it's going to be all right, but as soon as shit goes down and you're the one who has to call the shots when you're on a losing streak and things are not going well, that's when you're starting to look at your teammates and you go like, I don't want to have this role anymore. We've seen it in several different NA teams as well, that as soon as things start to go bad, people want to give away this role because they not only have bad stats, but they're also the one who's getting blamed for it. And I've tried this with having players who've never been an in-game leader before, trying to do it. And honestly, it's miserable. It's disgustingly bad to play with. Like,
That rant, Duncan, that you alluded to that I did last night. Well, first I was drunk. Second, it occurred because someone in chat asked me the question about what do I think of Freiburg as the in-game leader.
Yeah.
And it's just like, surely it hasn't come to this. Now, it's happy to hear that they at least went for Angel, someone who's been an in-game leader before, just relegating it to someone. But like, this is too much to put on a team. Is like, not only is it 5 new players playing together, but someone who's never in-game lead before. And I know Freiburg has the knowledge, and I know he's got the experience, and I know, he can read the game, and he knows what to do, and he knows how to properly do the tactics and everything. But it's a completely different beast when you're the one who actually has to call it and have that game of like mental chess in your head as a round goes on. This team, to me, I'm actually surprised to hear you kind of excited about it, because it just seems like a bunch of question marks. First, can they even get HS? Is he even going to get out of his contract in Penta? The next question mark is someone like Alu as the AWPer. Like, he's serviceable, but he's not great. He's not blowing anyone away. He's not like going above and beyond as an AWPer. Mixwell is going to be back on the rifle. He's been an AWPer for Optic, even though he's wanted to go back to the rifle. Freiburg, we all know the struggles he had later on in his career in NIP. Is it going to be a change of scenery that gets him back to it? Is he going to be able to properly entry frag as an in-game leader? Is he even going to try and do it? And then Magisk has also struggled recently. So this is just like this team just seems predicated on an if. And yeah, certainly they have the skill to be good, but they have to have like a lot of things go right. There's like a lot of 50-50s that could just either be disaster or could be good. And it just seems like one of those things where you can't really predict how these 5 players are gonna work together and make this happen.
Here's another red flag. Alu mentioned even when he was on NIP, I interviewed Get Right, and he said that Alu, when they made that roster change, that Alu had expressed he wants to win with a Finnish team. The fact that that's one of his motivations to like try hard and work together with a team to like achieve something means that if he's playing on another international team, he might just be unhappy. Or as cadiaN was saying, he might just, as soon as things get rough, be the first one to take the easy way out, or not try as hard, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It doesn't really matter what he wants, does it? Exactly. He already tried that. It didn't work out right. Like, listen, I once had a girlfriend who, listen, she wasn't like anything ridiculous, she wasn't even that liberated in it. She was just normal, nice, the girl next door, and Korean. They all were back then, so everything was going great, You'd have like good social time. She was actually fairly intelligent, she had a decent job. Everything seemed fine. She had her own money. She wasn't very demanding, but the spice wasn't there, It was just all right, And so, as we do, things didn't work out. I went straight for the party girls. All Korean again, of course, in this particular time in my life. It was the phase I was going through.
College.
Exactly.
Phase hasn't ended.
Definitely not college. I mean, some of them were college-age launders, but that's about it, mate. And I was the fucking dean, giving them fucking tuition sessions, motherfucker. And some of them were bent over a desk at certain points in time, but not taking a lashing, verbal or otherwise. So, in this scenario, though, the sad part I found was, launders, as crazy as it was, as much fun as it was with the party girls, that doesn't always work out. That's not always actually the best thing the whole time. That can be fun on occasion, So sometimes you find yourself looking back and going, maybe I should have just stuck with the boring, reliable, the girl next door type, the one you can respect, And in some ways, that's what I think Alu's had to learn. Yeah, he wants to win with Finnish people.
Yeah.
But first of all, he's Finnish, and he knows the struggles he has getting himself in shape, keeping his shit together. Mm-hmm. So he knows that's not possible anymore. He's seen what Finland's all about. Nothing. It's a cold, barren wasteland where hope goes to die. So he's getting the fuck out of Finland. He's getting some money. He's playing for different teams, international teams. I feel like Alu actually should be one of the players who's pretty good on this team, because I didn't think he had any problems on FaZe personally. I thought he was pretty good. In fact, actually, I think if you look at nearly all Alu's teams he's been on, I think he's not really a player who ever really has like big slumps. I think his style of play is pretty consistent, pretty stable. So for me, he's a pretty solid one. I think Mixwell, likewise. Mixwell's a very up and down player, but I think it's just who he is as a player. If he indeed doesn't want to AWP, it's ideal to have Alu there, who permanently will AWP, obviously. The big question marks for me are just Freiburg and... you can say HS is a question mark because he's barely played, so I guess no one knows about him. But I would say the big question mark for me is actually Magisk. I want to see what happens with him. Because here's the thing. This is a topic I wanted to discuss with you. So Sam from Action Esports wrote an article where he essentially put forward the case that he thinks part of the reason Magisk was so bad in sort of the North era of that team once Rubino was gone, was once Rubino was gone, it seemed like MSL tried to sort of roll back the clock to the AZ days and be like, right, I'm going to put AZ back in good positions. Me and him are going to be the entry duo. You know, we're going to basically turn the clock back 2 years. And we're going to try and make that work, but you know, with an overall more skilled lineup. And it did seem like the person who suffered the most from that change was Magisk. Suddenly, Magisk played all these roles and spots he didn't play before. And just as a player, despite how much they tried to deny it, he clearly just wasn't like a star player anymore. And he had his issues in the team, and now was being kicked entirely from the team. They haven't even like role swapped again or anything. They've just kicked him out entirely. So I actually feel like in this team, this is where I think the first challenge for Freiburg is, because do you, like, if anything, with someone like Magisk, I think you have to sort of make him the star of the team. I think you have to actually say, like, right, well, okay, tell us what roles you do want to play. What can you do? And then put it around him and then see what you can do. Because otherwise, I think he's shown that he can't necessarily just do whatever the in-game leader says. What do you think of that as a general topic? Like, obviously, North is a mystery to everyone, including themselves. No one really knows what the problems were there. What did you think of the whole Magisk in North and then Magisk getting kicked from North? What's everyone's thoughts on that?
I think he's partially right in the article and also partially wrong. Because, yes, he was changed away from some positions. Most notably for me, like most importantly, is the cobblestone, where he was fucking insane on A. Like, he was equally good on A cobble as he is on A overpass, in my opinion. And that doesn't say... It says a lot, is what I'm trying to say. Then all of a sudden he was playing B. We also scrimped them, and you watched the officials, and he didn't really have the same effect there. But for example, when Sam mentions the swap on Mirage with Magis playing B, when I was starting to play with him, when he came up in SK and to the Team X and etc., he always played B on Mirage, and he enjoyed it. He likes to play these kind of spots on, like, alone, and he's good there. And also that means that when you do A stacks, having an extra guy hiding on the balcony or something, he's the one getting baited for, which gives him extra kills. And also A Mirage is one of the better sides to retake. So I think stat-wise, it's actually not that bad to hold B-apps. You've seen it with Valda as well. When he was in Heroic, it was the same situation. But I think, for example, for Cobblestone, I really don't understand the vision of changing him away from A. Clearly, there was a problem on North's CT side of Cobblestone, but I don't think you can blame it on him, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
At least.
Go ahead.
him as in, I was going to say him as in MSL.
No, he means blame Magisk.
Yeah, I say you can't blame Magis, for example, on Cobblestone. I think, to my knowledge, if you want to put up AC, he was the one holding drop position on CT Cobble. Talking about, for example, Rush is taking that one, and it's a very difficult one. I think AC, if you want to put him up as your star player, he should not be holding that position. He should, for example, be swapping with MSL, who was holding A, and MSL should be the one who's taking the sad job of holding drop. And I know also that's what he's doing now. Yeah, that's what he's doing now. But that was not what they were doing back then.
Okay.
And also, Config was a beast and B long, and they put him on A side. Like, they made some weird rotations, which I honestly don't understand. But I think they were just looking for answers.
Because the thing is, like, when I look at North, I like the overwhelming feeling I get from that team is like it's actually like a really sad team, because for me they're stuck like right in the middle no man's land of where MSL, his whole career as an in-game leader, has always had to do the opposite. He's had to work with less talent, and he's had to find people. I mean, great examples being like Rubino, find like sort of shift these guys around roles depending on who he has until he finds the right role, and then it's like, right, I've got him sorted. Right now we've got this young player over here. What we're going to do with him? Right, who's going to be the entry? He's normally having to do. That's why we put a lot of the credit for those big upsets those teams used to get onto MSL. We say, what a great in-game leader. You know, oh, imagine if he had the talent of at the time, Carrigan, etc., you know. But actually, I have to say, that's the sad part. Ever since they became like Dignitas with Magisk and Config, and they had more talent in the lineup, the more talent that's been in the lineup, MSL seems to have just willingly given up more and more control to the stars and be like, right, we're going to play more like a phase type scenario. We're going to play a few strats that we're going to just run, and I'll maybe call up like the variation on what we do there, you know, but we're not going to have like super in-depth flash tactics and stuff, and we're not going to have this one thing that we're going to run over and over and over again and win the map off that. And the flaw with that has been they haven't really managed to get the superstar players that make that loose style work. Like, if you want that to work, then Config and Magisk or Config and cadiaN or whoever it is better be like legitimate, like world-class, like we're talking like top 5 player in the world or top 10 player, so good that when they have this individual freedom, they make use of it and they take over the whole game, Like, I'll say Config's done that sometimes, but the rest of them in the team, like Magisk and AZ clearly struggled, and then cadiaN was always good. I think he was always pretty good the whole time, but I think you'd struggle to say he was like a top X player during the North period. So for me, I don't really understand the vision for MSL. It's like, I'd almost rather he took these players and said, right, well, I tried letting you all play kind of like with a lot of room and let you have a lot of individual freedom. If anything, I'd go back to the old style and be like, right, well, let's play some structured CS here. Let's go back to that, where now we've got a couple of stars and the rest of you are going to play within the team structure. I almost think that would be the better way, because at least we know that worked in the past for MSL, whereas I don't think he necessarily has got the feel for the game to be this sort of loose in-game leader, which admittedly a lot of the teams with a lot of talent try to run, That doesn't seem as convincing from him.
No, it doesn't. And actually, you almost wish he would tighten up the leash a little bit, in the sense that we've seen other in-game leaders like Gabi has done a great job pretty much micromanaging the entirety of Big. We've seen a little bit more of this like heavy tactics, like heavy in-game leader style have success recently. I think the one thing that article that you referenced kind of forgets is that after AZ joined, like, I put a little bit of the blame on Magis. There's some truth in that article, but I mean, when AZ joined, they didn't make the switch immediately. Like they gave time. Like they didn't change roles for some time after AZ joined. So I mean, there was a long period after that epicenter win essentially last year where Magisk wasn't getting to that peak again. He had a couple of good games here and there, but it wasn't consistent enough to rely on it. And when you're putting him in some of those positions that he's not performing in, that's kind of that's when you start to shuffle things. And I think maybe they went overboard in the terms of swapping so many roles to try and unlock AZ, who hadn't shown that he could perform at a high level in a long time. Like, trying to get him back to that, I think they overcompensated for that kind of deficiency, and that's kind of ruined both players to a degree. I mean, obviously the role swaps makes everyone feel a little bit uncomfortable. But I mean, I still think that there has been a very noticeable drop off on an individual level of Magisk from epicenter to basically every event he's played in since then.
Like, especially when you consider the rumor, and it seems almost certain, is that Valde is the player coming into North. When you consider Valde comes from Heroic, a team that absolutely they were also a team, they're in the MSL Dignitas position now, where you have to play with less talent, you have to have a structured style to make everyone's role work. If anything, Valde's used to that. So if I'm in them, now's the ideal time for me to go back to structured CS, because look at who you've got in the team. cadiaN has played structured CS his whole career, you've got Valde coming in, MSL himself is there. Okay, let the other two have the more freedom if you want. Let AZ and Config be the guys with some freedom. But otherwise, let's go back to actually MSL using his brain to win the game, not just trying to set people up and then watching them fail.
Is this Valde thing like confirmed yet? Like, is this? Yeah.
Like, I mean, there was literally a picture that had him in it, which they really badly sort of like. Here's what I've never understood, right? If you're gonna black someone out, like, silhouette them or whatever, why not just make them like have a belly or something? Just add some detail in. Don't make it literally so if someone goes, wait a minute, I can see who fits into this picture.
Just start superimposing. I was gonna say, start superimposing Doja on everybody.
Okay, so they made a silhouette, or they.
Well, I mean, the obvious joke there that you missed, Launders, you missed the obvious joke there. The obvious joke is get a silhouette of cadiaN and put it in, and then everyone will go, well, obviously they're just trolling us. He'll never be in the team, will he? So,
oh my god,
Jesus.
I'm just saying, if you want to throw him off, then in fact, don't even make it hide him. Just make it like literally his Facebook picture, whatever it is. Just put that in there.
Game over, man. I was gonna say they took a picture of Valde at the boot camp and then tweeted out with a black silhouette, but they forgot one of his shoes. And he always wears these white Ultra Boosts, and someone matched it up with his Instagram photos and saw that it was his leg. It's 100% him.
Metal in there.
Why do you notice the white Ultra Boosts, Launders? I have an honest question, Launders, because I've noticed you released this Launders boxer fashion line. You've got these weird little fucking artist things, like these 9 prints that you've had. Yeah. Are you a fuckboy? Are you a little bit of a fuckboy?
Next question.
Reasonable, okay. He's in esports trying to be talent. What do you think?
I want to be the king of esports.
It's a requirement.
Well, that's something we all have in common. I don't know how you can attack me on that.
Exactly.
Sorry, and I have white Ultra Boosts too.
Yeah, they're comfortable.
They are
walking on clouds.
So. Okay, who bought you yours, Moses?
The lady friend.
Okay. So getting proud now just because you're not a fuckboy anymore?
Yeah, I've relinquished the lifestyle. I've given it up. I'm a one woman man, Duncan. How about you?
Okay, some would say you were always a woman man. Sorry, one woman man. My mistake. I misheard you there. You know,
crowbars out in full force.
Absolutely, yeah. So here's the question then: what do you actually think of the new North with Valde? Like, will this fix some problems?
Valde's the sickest player ever. So yeah, he comes in, he fixes problems.
And I know for a fact that there's a love relationship between Valde and Launders, and he said this since day one that Launders loves him.
Why?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I mean, I don't know. I think Valde has kind of a likable playstyle, and if you say that Launders is a big fan or lover of Cloud9, there's some similarities between, for example, Stewie and Valde to a certain degree in terms of how he's playing around smokes, utilizing grenades, etc. He's this kind of player who's just gonna randomly pop through the smoke at the best timing and knows all these crazy spam spots and small tricks, movements to do. Yeah. He's a very intelligent player as well. He's a
nerd, and like he studies a lot, and it's like he's one of these guys just like as nerdy as he is so gifted mechanically as well, and he knows when to, like, he firmly believes that you need to be aggressive sometimes to the point that it looks stupid, but he knows exactly when to use those risks, just like Stewie does, where a lot of people would just say this is a ridiculous play. He believes that you need to do that sometimes, and he knows when to do it. He's a quality player.
I will say, I mean, obviously, I don't need to be another talking head talking about how gifted and skilled he is, because everyone kind of knows that. But I will say that I spoke to him briefly. This is the only time I've ever spoken to Valde in Toronto at an after party after an event, and he had like a 15 to 20 minute conversation about like which players he liked based on like how they play certain positions and what they do when they play those roles, about like which teams he likes watching because of how they play strategically and how they like certain specific setups that they're using and everything like that. And it was it was so impressive, like seeing a player who could specifically point out examples like tactically of like teams and players that he had studied and why he likes them. And he just came off as one of those guys, and I'm sure, I mean, you guys backing it up now, I mean, this is a guy who puts a lot of time into like learning the game and learning the theory behind the game and the strategy behind it, not just being like, I am fucking talented and I'm just going to wreck everyone. Like he's got a method to the madness, and that's always like a super refreshing thing. And it's also an easy way to get the analysts in Counter-Strike to like you as a player as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's actually one of the things it's one of the reasons why I always point out that even if you can say like NA teams need more coaching and all these factors that would help, it's more that they would just help. It's not that they need them because EU players have that and do it. I always bring this up. Some of the best EU players are so lazy when it comes to like studying opponents and watching it's actually ridiculous. Like, it's not a joke that when people, I think some people saw this interview, I think it was a double tap one that Nico did, where they asked him something along the lines of, what should this team do to fix their team? And he just basically said like, I don't know. Like, he never thought about it whatsoever. He doesn't know anything about how that team runs. He doesn't care. More importantly, he doesn't care. And by the way, when you watch him in game, obviously an incredibly sick player. But you just think to yourself, imagine if a player like that had some ridiculous, like Kobe Bryant practice mentality, where not only did they practice their own skill to be so good, but they did even, cursory sort of scouting of like the opponent they're going to play in a best of three, just who's going to play their spots, who's going to peak on them. I mean, even if we're talking about they could improve 0.05%, that could actually be enough to like win one big round. Players that good, it would have an impact. That's the sick thing. So yeah, sure. I agree. Whenever you find someone who's actually good at the game and who does that, it's always refreshing. It gives you hope, optimism. Because the sad thing is, I have to say, in Counter-Strike especially, there is like a mad divide where it's almost like the more skilled you are, the less time you put into any cerebral aspect of the game. Meanwhile, the other way around, if you're not that skilled at the game, it's like that's the way you can make it still. You better do like MSL and just start fucking studying everything and coming up with all the tactics. That's how you're going to make your living. But there isn't that much crossover. It's quite sad in that respect,
Yeah, it's the talent and hard work kind of thing. I mean, it's the mechanics and game sense or knowledge or whatever, which is a little bit different. But quite often you see someone who's very talented just go and like win a lot, and then someone who's hardworking is somebody who takes on the more cerebral aspect, tries to earn like every single little advantage that they can possibly muster up, and that's like, I guess, mechanics versus game sense. And then you ideally have a guy who can hit every shot, but then also feels like he's not gonna be the very best or win everything or win the most rounds possible, like you're saying, unless he also puts in that extra time and studies and stuff. So you just, it's like those guys who work really hard. I think they just wish that they were born with the aim. That's the only thing.
For sure, yeah.
You can't teach someone how to run faster, right?
But he's also the guy who knows how to use it mostly, Like, one thing is to have the mentality that you want to watch a lot of demos, for example, or like make a lot of new plays that you can provide to a team or tactics. But it's also like, whenever I've been playing with him, he's very constructive in terms of, if you lose a practice or something, he's going to go like, okay, so what did we do wrong? Because I feel like then he's going to be very specific in terms of like, I think this execution doesn't work because X and Y. And he's going to go like, the default doesn't make us go far enough into being able to do this execute properly or with enough time or with enough like calmness. So like, he's very impressive in that sense as well. He knows how to use these kind of informations that he's searching for.
So why do you think, if you have any ideas, why do you think that it didn't work out with him in Heroic? Snappy is, I feel like, similar. We're very smart. He studies a lot. Talk to him a lot about the rounds and stuff like that. He studies. Do you think there was just too much friction with their ideas for how they need to win? Or,
I mean, I said I was in talks with Valde about creating a new team. Luckily for him, he ended up in a better place. But I think for him, his vision was that they were not a team that was gonna develop much more than where they were at. I don't think he believed they would break into the top 10 consistently, even with the talent they had. He felt that too many of their players was inexperienced, and also he felt like that Snappy sometimes needed a right hand, which he, for example, had when they had Glaive. Had this guy who would be supporting him with ideas whenever he was struggling, because he's a great in-game leader, but also he's a guy that sometimes I feel that when things go wrong, he sometimes is too much set on whatever you already have in your playbook and doesn't always deliver new things to like surprise your opponent. So I think he felt like that was needed, and I think that's the main reason, honestly. And also I think maybe, I don't know, I can't talk for him, but I think maybe he was hoping that if he decided to part ways with Heroic, then maybe North would at some point be like, yo, we got to get him now or it's too late. Instead of just knowing that. Yeah.
Like he obviously did his time in Heroic. Like, he gave them a lot of time. I mean, it helped. Obviously, that was his platform as well to get good. So I think it was pretty fair for both parties, But then, as you say here, from the outside, it was so obvious that sooner or later North has to make some sort of roster move. And so he's the prime candidate. Like as I was saying, even beyond skills, etc., a very reasonable person, doesn't have any player conflicts where people don't want to play with him. So you have to figure, it seemed like an obvious move that would work out. Like, I literally thought North would have had to have a ridiculous playoff result to not have that, which maybe they could have done because they got that ridiculous side of the bracket, but it's kind of perfect in a way that they just bombed instantly against Virtus.pro. So it was a done deal for me at that point in time. Like, absolutely, we can see what's going to happen now. The question is this, though. So North has been stuck, even at their best and their worst with this lineup, of being in, like, the hell of, like, a 5th to 8th type team who, like, they actually don't upset teams that often. Like, they didn't make the really deep runs that often, Does this move actually... Can you actually see a world where North now wins stuff, or they make it further? What do you think, Launders? Come on.
Ugh, I really hate that they drop Magisk. Like, I just think Magisk is too valuable to let go of. Like, more valuable than AZ. I think he has a much higher chance of both coming back and becoming a star player and also going farther than AZ did. So I don't like that. I feel like Valde is filling a void and will probably help them become more consistent, but I don't. It's still too many doubts about it. North for me. Don't you think
the mentality would be too much NIP-ish with, like, we have these 4 and it's the 5th guy who's a problem,
But the 5th guy being
AC, you add him, doesn't solve the problem. Let's just get rid of him again.
Oh, I see.
where they have this.
No, I think that would have been the wise decision to make at that point. I don't think they would have fallen into that. I think it would have been too early in their roster changes for it to be that same situation. But I think if you look at what they sacrificed to try and get AZ back to a level, I think it's just too much. Now, I think the big thing that screams to me when from the outside looking in, and I don't have any information on what the team was like, but it just kind of feels like they had to have thought that there was some kind of clash with Magisk on a personal level where someone or multiple players didn't like working with him, didn't like the way that he was operating and trying to fix problems, or maybe he wasn't trying to. I don't know what it could have been, but I think that's more of a sacrifice for personal reasons than dropping Magisk for some kind of individual player reason. And I agree with Launders to a sense. I think picking up Valdi kind of fills the void of Magisk leaving, but if you replace AZ with Valdi, then it improves a position, right? It's an improvement on the player for sure. And then you can start playing around with roles with players who are massively gifted on an individual level. And I think that's a much better situation for them to be in. I don't think this. The funny thing is, we've talked about a couple of teams like this change and the Cloud9 change. I think looking at them, I can't say definitively whether I think it improves either team for sure. I think there's going to be a lot of questions. I don't think either team with these roster changes has been this is definitely an improvement. On paper, perhaps, but I don't see it translating as much to the actual in-game results side of things.
Okay, so here's a question then: is everyone had to analyze cadiaN to FaZe as if it was in a vacuum, right? That's the only move they're making. Does this improve them? Is it good? And listen, you can go either way. I think you can make a strong case either way, that it was a really good, or maybe it's not as good move. But I have actually not heard anyone, after we all heard that Olofmeister's going to FaZe, which apparently is now confirmed, I haven't actually heard anyone who's credible in the whole scene be like, holy shit, FaZe is amazing now. They're going to win. They're going to be number one. I haven't heard anyone put their...
I don't like Olaf the FaZe.
I fucking love it. I absolutely love it.
Come on.
Okay, why?
So fucking good. Because I am just living in a fairy tale land where Olaf, no, this is not sarcasm. I'm just going to live in this world, Duncan.
Okay, come on.
Olaf was a former best player in the world. He's been downtrodden. He's been beaten up. He's lost a step. He's getting older. Motivation's kind of dwindling. He's going to find a way. He's going to come back into this, and he's going to take those skills that brought him to be the best player in the world for a year, which is almost an unmatched thing to do. For an entire year, he was the best player, hands down. And if he can retool those skills to find a way to be more of a role player, to allow guys like Guardian and Nico to get the majority of the plays. And, if he can be that player who's helping them out and taking his fights when he gets them, not always being the one to initiate, not be the star player, I think this would be absolutely fucking brilliant. I think it would be so fucking killer. But the fairy tale is he actually going to do it? That's always
is he actually going to do it?
Yeah. That's always the crazy part is that would be the ideal situation. And as an analyst and as a former player, I would love to see that happen as a support player, quote unquote, with the skills of the best player in the world. But we never see that because it's just very hard to get those star players out of the mindset of them being constant playmakers, especially when you consider the Swedish scene. Those teams are built upon individual plays at the right time, at the right location.
So why is it good? Why would he do it? Why would he be a good support player?
I'm living in a fairy tale, Launders. You missed the opening line of that entire segment.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he has to be a great support player. We're just what is the point of that?
Launders, you seem a lot confused here. You remember when, 3 months ago, everyone had to mindfuck themselves that wouldn't it be great if Shroud became a really good support player because he used to be a star player and he has really good mechanics, and if he just changed his style entirely and his entire mentality and just became a new person and has fucking personality erased by CIA MK Ultra and became a new person, it's called Cypher X or something, who just played as a support player, wouldn't that be great? And then everyone at the end was like, yes, except the fucking virus of Cloud9 supporting. Yes, that would be brilliant. So likewise, if Olofmeister just did everything he's never done before, in a way he's never done before, for reasons he's never done before, but was just also just as good as he was before, then that'd be good. At that point in time...
Yeah, last time
doesn't that work for every player? Can't we just do that with every player?
I'm so fucking excited to see him do it as well. He's definitely going to do it, 100%.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Last time you brought it up with me, I wasn't sure that he could change, so... I didn't say that Shroud would, even though we agreed that he needed to. So I just Olaf is just even more of a stretch. Stroud was never really a star, even only the first major he ever played, where he had like that amazing series versus NIP in like the quarters or something like that. That was like the only time he had been like a true through and through star player. It was like.
Plus, I've got to say, this is one thing that is depressing. Let's imagine it worked, right? I'll accept the premise that somehow it works, right? He becomes the supportive player. He lets cadiaN and Nico be the stars. You know, they have this great stacked lineup, which now somehow, again, like FaZe before, can compete for championships. Maybe he can even win. He can go deep at majors. Isn't there something depressing, a bit like in traditional sports? You know, when some like legendary player in basketball's like 37 years old and they're like, well, obviously I can't be the star player of my team anymore. So let's just ring chase with all the good teams and sign for the veterans minimum and be like, you know, yet another Lakers. Person trying to be like the 11th player on LeBron's team and hope that he carries me to the championship, you know, because the problem is when you then win the championship like that, that doesn't really count to kind of your total, you know, because if you talk about like Olaf Meister, like if you had a discussion with someone, is he the best player of all time? You're not going to be counting championships he won as like the support player of FaZe in an argument against whether he or coldzera is the best, you know, when you're talking about when they were both the star player, you know, that's the context you got to have that discussion in. So here's the thing.
I don't know about that. I don't agree with that.
Okay.
I think if you
I actually don't either.
I mean, if you win, like, why wouldn't you count that? I mean, it's like the only person who might not is like some pleb on Reddit, you know.
No. Wait a minute. What does that statement mean? So, if you're having a discussion, who is better in the history of Counter-Strike, coldzera or Olaf Meister?
Okay. I got
See
you.
what I mean? Like as the best player ever, it doesn't really count the ones that you won as the support player when like Nico was your best player. You know? The whole point of that discussion is these were the two star players.
No, I think it depends on his impact as a support player as well, is the big thing. Because I think there is something massively impressive about a player if he's able to transition into a new role in that sense and still be, if he could still be, a star from the support role, I guess, if we're going to call it that.
Here's a question.
I can understand
Moses, who is the best support player of all time in CSGO? Who's your pick?
I don't fucking know.
Just put forward a candidate.
All right, well, let's just go with like Crims or Zipnix would probably be the two big ones that'll come out there.
Crims or Zipnix, right? Are either of those two like a top 10 player of all time for you?
No, but when you add in the fact that he was the best player in 2015 and he won championships as the star player of Fnatic, as the player getting shit done, and then he transitions into a new role, I think if you look at the entire, breadth of his accomplishments and what he's done as an individual player, I think that's an extremely impressive thing that you can do is switch things up and still win championships from a new position.
But it's impressive, but it's not the same because the whole point is the whole time that he's doing that, coldzera's like, well, I am still the best player. So these all count for me. That everyone's on my back, not the other way around.
But I have two things. Like, first of all, who's even saying that Olaf is gonna be support, right?
Yeah, I mean,
who is then?
Yeah.
Jesus, I don't want to see that. That's an even worse world. Here's the thing. cadiaN has created an even worse... Okay, come on.
I'm not even done. What is a support player, dude? Like, listen to me.
I have another convert. I have another convert. I love it. I'm so happy. Take it away, cadiaN. Everyone shut the fuck up. Listen to the man.
Yeah.
Just honestly, like, what is the definition of a support player? Because some players thrive under being the first in on an execute, while some players is more laid back. Also, when you compare, for example, different playstyles, such as coldzera, he's normally not the first guy entering the site. He's the one ending up in clutches, being more behind. Is he a support player because he's buying grenades in the pissed rounds? Is he a support player because he's setting up Fur and Sago to running in first on the sides? My opinion, definitely not. I mean, what is a support player? Can you tell me one thing that all the support players have in common?
Yeah, that's definitely tough. That's a good question.
They throw flashbangs.
So hold on. I would say that it's definitely true that there's a lot of teams out there that don't have a player that identifies as a support player, but more so the player that will buy grenades along with IGL or drop guns along with the IGL, who in IGL is usually most selfless because like his plans, you're not gonna tell two other people to drop for him, depending on a spawn or something like that. So I think a support player is more defined by who are the star players as opposed to who is a star supporting who. So on this team, it's like who along with cadiaN is going to take the economic hit, who is going to take the shittier roles or throw more nades, because that's true that there's always a consistent player in on a team or a lineup or on a certain map, even though that changes, that will always end up spending more money, buying less for themselves, dropping, and so on. Like that happens, right?
I think the tricky situation with the support conversation comes in because I've tried to deal with this for a while and I haven't been able to really figure it out. But like part of what I'm thinking is I hate pigeonholing players into being a support player, but there's definite like support roles that you have within different scenarios of a round. Like for instance, if you talk to the SK guys, they would tell you that for a lot of the portions of the round, like when Taco and Cold are working together to like get map control to clear something out, Cold's actually like the support player. Cold's the one flashing around the corners for Taco as the entry to like go around and clear a corner, and Cold's just there backing him up. He throws the flashbangs and then he covers an angle, and that's being in a support role, but he's not the support player obviously, because then he turns into like the star. He turns into like the playmaker later on when they actually execute onto a bomb site. But I mean that I guess this is just one of those, the whole support conversation is just mired by different opinions. And the tough part is calling someone a support player is the easiest way to translate it to the viewership, to the base, to like in a casual audience. But I mean, going back to FaZe and that conversation, I think, it's entirely possible that we don't see that fairy tale where Olaf is the one relegated to those roles more often than anyone else. It could be a situation where if you look at the team, it almost feels like cadiaN and Rain are probably the two likeliest players to have a little bit more passive, and the trio would be Olaf, Nico, and cadiaN, who are like kind of like the big playmakers, the big force that FaZe is going to try and get going, and to get them to carry them through stretches.
Because
go ahead.
From my point of view, why would you bring in Olaf to play a role that he's really not educated at? If we go for saying that he's going to be a supportive player, when
cadiaN, if there is no such role as a supportive player, then why is it a problem? Like,
no, but I'm taking your stand. I'm taking your stand right after, and like Duncan, listen.
Come on.
Why would you bring in Olaf to a position where he's uneducated, where he shouldn't be feeling comfortable, while replacing Kiyoshima, who was arguably, in your eyes then, most likely one of the best support players, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. It doesn't make sense to me. I wouldn't do it.
It's because the reason why you think about it is because you just look at this roster and you just say something's got to give somewhere. Like someone's going to have to be put into an uncomfortable situation. It can't be cadiaN as the primary opper, and it can't be Nico because he's like this young up and coming star contending for one of the best players in the world, like every single tournament, contending for MVPs. Like it feels like those two have like their kind of their situations in this team all kind of locked up. Like you just can't take what they do away from them. So then you look at the other three and you say it's going to come to them to make space for those two players specifically to get what they want, right? And then I mean, at least to me, that's kind of what it feels like. And I know it might not be every single round, every single situation, but it does feel like Olaf isn't going to be the focal point of this team. And if he's not the focal point, then he does at some point have to kind of give space and be a little bit more backup and supporting guys like Nico and cadiaN.
Like the big problem for me is this. I actually agree. If I'm looking only from Olaf Meister's perspective, I would say you're right. He shouldn't be any kind of a supportive player. He should actually be one of the better players in the team, should have some of the game built around. The problem there is, I think there's too many question marks at what, it's like you have to solve 5 problems to make that work. Like you have to make cadiaN, in theory, at his best, has had entire teams built around him. So what, is he not going to have all the resources around him? That's already a problem right there. Then you've got the fact of like, well, let's say Rain is going to have to be more of a team player in the sense he was one of the better players in the team. It was actually one of the parts of the team that's to some degree worked, So it's almost like you have to shift everyone's role except Nico to fully facilitate, or everyone has to do a slightly different role. Like now Rain and cadiaN perhaps have to shift up a little bit. So my problem is it's that you're doing all the moves at once. If you're doing these one at a time, like say you added cadiaN and you figured out, is he going to be a star AWPer? Is he just going to AWP some of the time and on his own? Is he going to be a supportive AWP? If you figured that one out and then you were like, right, well I've got space here for another stop. I'll bring it all off my stand. I'd get that one, but it feels like cadiaN. It's mad because when he first came into the team, he was working with quite a bad team where he was trying to figure out what can people even do, with all those other players. Now it's like he's got all these players that could do really great things, but now he has to figure out which one of them are going to be the star, who's going to be the defining factor of this team. Like one of the problems you have whenever you put star players like this, it's not even just that like they can't all play at a star player level because part of it requires that the team's built around you, but like eventually there is no team even those really sick Fnatic teams, there really is no team that's like, oh, all 5 of us at any game could be the star player. That doesn't really exist. Like, every team has a scouting report that pretty much you can kind of tell these guys are going to be the better ones. You have to contain this guy, or on this map, these are going to be the danger players. So at some point, you have to figure that out. And put it this way, I don't claim to have any answers. That's why I find the phase one really puzzling, this move, because I almost can't see what the ideal scenario is supposed to end up being, you know? Like, I'm amazed they're so confident in this move.
Yeah, and they blew bags on Olaf. So, like, the other question is I don't know, this might be conjecture, but I think one thing I found is maybe not consistent, but there are a couple of really good examples, probably like Stico and like Faflaren, where they have, not only were they thought of as support players, whether they identified as it or not, but I found there's like a support player has this intangible quality of being a supportive personality as well, and also happens to have like either a low ego because they're just a humble person, or because they're not quite as good as their teammates. They recognize it and they accept that and they're fine with it. And that's another thing for me. It's just like when you have these stars like you do on Cloud9 or FaZe, who is it that has that low ego, that supportive personality, that glue of the team? Who's the nothing? Who's the Faflaren? Who's going to put themselves? Who's going to play that role and not be salty about it?
By the way, I think that fits the bill of Olaf. If you talk to him during Fnatic's reign, he was super humble about how good he was on an individual level, and super humble about how good all of his teammates were and everything like that. I mean, even when he's the star player, it almost felt like he never really truly believed it when I spoke to him. Duncan's going to have a different opinion, obviously.
Yeah, I don't buy that, though. That's the problem. That's like, first of all, his most famous quote is, I'm not the best player, but there's no one who's better than me.
Which is baller as fuck.
Okay, so how does that work now then? I'm not the best player in FaZe because everyone's better than me. It's wicked. That's a sick catchphrase there. Put that on a t-shirt. Fucking hell. And then, imagine if he tries the same mentality, but no one's better than me. And then Nico's like, what about me? All right, then fucking all right. Okay, but not many players are better than me. Ben's like, well, I am. He's like, oh, bloody hell. And then Guardian's like, excuse me. He's like, all right, fucking hell, I'm just an all right player, aren't I? Like, for catchphrase. I mean,
I'm gonna go back into the fairy tale a little bit here and just like Olaf as a player or as a person who he was injured at some point when he was younger, but he was like a competitive soccer player, like someone who came from like an organized team sport. I always feel like those guys have a better sense of the idea of playing for a team and playing within team roles as someone who grew up having to fit into a team, and you kind of get that understanding. I think he's going to have that. I think as well, if you combine the fact that Fnatic has just been getting dumpstered for the past 7 months, I mean, that'll humble anybody after being on top of the world. So I mean, there's a lot of reasons I think Olaf is going to be pretty pliable and humble coming into this squad and his adjustment as a player.
Put it this way, if I'm like fucking SK or Astralis and I saw this move just happened, I'm like, great. Let's let them fucking spend 3 months trying to figure this out and all the 50 different directions you can go in it. Well, we have our team set, ready to go. Yeah. We can already win tomorrow. Ideal. If anything, FaZe, they've actually probably put the timeline further back. I mean, I realize people expect them to either be very good out of the gate and win or have problems, but this is one where I don't think they're just going to come right out of the gate amazing,
But they've also gone balls deep, because what you said, Thorin, actually made a lot of sense to me. You can swap maybe Elu for cadiaN, and you can see how does this work. Mm-hmm. And then we find a system. We can add another star player, right?
Yeah.
But that would also add the problem of making another change, and then having to rebuild once again. So they've gone balls deep, all in on this one. And one of my problems with maybe the current FaZe lineup is, for example. cadiaN had a leadership style where, for example, the old Astralis guys didn't really enjoy playing under in the end.
Okay.
And Olaf comes from what we all know is the Fnatic, where you basically do whatever you want, right? And everyone is loose, and if you want to buy an orb, you buy an orb. If you don't want to, you just do whatever you want. And these kind of things where you don't play a very strategic-based game. And cadiaN came... when he was like at his best, he came under the Navi structure system with Zeus, right?
Yes.
Where they were very thrilled, and you do this and you listen to me and you move when I say you move, these kind of things. And that should be a big contrast, right?
Yes.
So I think, and Olaf and cadiaN are both probably pretty salty about the fact that style didn't work for them afterwards. So like cadiaN after Zeus. So he had a period of time where it was a little bit too loose for him. He wanted Zeus back to fill that hole, you know. And then there was Olaf who played, and there was Olaf who for so long played on this loose style, and it worked for a while. And after it just didn't work, right? It didn't work, and they want that change. And then cadiaN, as you mentioned, he did lose the respect of his teammates on Astralis. Had a tough time calling, and maybe might want it. We'll try to bring the reins in a little bit. And,
here's my theory. Here's you guys are just waffling with all this fantasy. Here's a real theory. This is pure analysis. Just watch and learn, kids. So I think that FaZe, right, came to cadiaN, and they were asking him like, okay, you had a really good team, you won a tournament, you were in all the finals, like it was bad at the majors, so just tell us, listen, we've got money. You tell us, what do you want? You tell us what you want as a player and as a leader and as a team, and we'll give you whatever it is you need. But just figure it out now and tell us now exactly, you've got one chance to do it. And basically he was like one of those guys, if you ever go, okay, launders, you can rep me on this. If you get really high and you go for a walk, right? You want to get some food. You go to like 7-Eleven, you go to Kmart, whatever it might be. And when you go there, right, because you're really high, you're imagining all the food as you look at it. You're going like, oh, hot dog, that looks good. Ooh, but the chips look good as well. Ooh, with candy. And they have got donuts. And you start ordering, right? And it always goes like this. Yeah, can I get like a donut? And yeah, I'll have some fries. Yeah, some fries as well. And slushy, yeah, add a slushy in. One of those pastry, yeah, maybe one of those bag of chips, like thing. And that's what he was doing with players. He was going like, okay, I need cadiaN, and they were like, okay, we'll get your cadiaN. He goes, oh, can I have Olafmeister as well? They were, yeah, sure, get Olafmeister. And then basically the problem is when you get home, you can't eat all that stuff. You've got too much stuff. You can't do everything with it. You've made a mistake, a classic mistake. So the problem here is cadiaN was too greedy. He just wanted all the stars. He wanted it all to work out.
I think he should have just grabbed cadiaN at the cadiaN being the chili dog, and then just took advantage of the free chili. Just pressed that button and held on to it and not moved on.
Which is Kiyashima.
But don't you just pass out on the bed and then you wake up in the morning and you are happy that you still bought the extra stuff?
Or you're covered in chili from the hot dog.
Could be as well.
You just went full Bardoff, Duncan, with this whole thing. You're just like, he's got the cheeseburger and he's got the lettuce, the tomato, but there's no sauce. There's no sauce down.
Exactly. I thought that people like that, where you just say non sequiturs and at the end you leave room for them to insert like actual analysis of the game, and then people go, "It's fucking brilliant, it's genius, you're the best." There'll be a thread right now on Reddit, Thorin to analyze the major final. Just kidding. That'll never happen again. Well, who knows? Some of them eventually. This is my motto in life. They can't have every major in Poland and Brazil. Or maybe they can. Maybe Stewie 2K is organising, can't I have bloody every major? Me and my reverse psychology. Now every major's in Poland and Brazil. Thanks, Stewie.
It would just fucking crack me up if the next major was announced in Brazil. I would laugh so fucking hard, Duncan. Not out of any hatred. I just think it'd be funny and ironic.
Maybe I might get my shot at the analyst desk again. Who knows?
There we are.
Well, what countries do we have to get at before I can be at the analysis desk of a major again? What countries? I need to know.
Well, I mean, let me think. Because first of all, we're going to need a few plane crashes arranged. And, you're asking for the steps,
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
We're going to need to steal a sports car. We're going to need to put sanctions on Serbia. We've got to get Pimp into a team. That one alone might be ridiculous. We've got to remind Risk that it's not 2012 anymore. And finally, what do we have to do finally? We have to just get... Who else can we need to kick? Oh, that's right. We need to put Sponge in a movie theater like Clockwork Orange with sticks under his eyes and make him watch that 1v1 against, I think, was it Shroud or Freakazoid, 1,000 times in a row, while I just keep whispering in his ear, worst 1v1 ever.
That was not the worst 1v1 ever, by the way.
Obviously not. It's called hyperbole, you absolute raged.
That play was just fine.
No, it wasn't.
I don't know if anyone
remembers
it.
Absolutely appalling.
He had red HP. It was fine.
Yeah, well then running out super long range where you can't possibly kill the opponent and he can just have a free bang at your face with a USB, that's probably a good tactic.
I don't even think it was a headshot.
Oh, here we go. You know what, Launders? I'm challenging you. You've come face to face. So here's the question. I challenge you to make a play breakers about how that was a good play and explain all the ways that it was a good play.
It was a fine play.
I'm looking forward to the video.
It's common knowledge.
Look at what you got yourself into here.
Exactly.
Landers.
Yeah, you painted yourself into a corner there. So okay, back to cadiaN in phase. So where does this even go though?
Which teams are going to be better than them? SK will be better than them.
Dude, I feel like a lot.
Dude, it's after SK and Astralis, it's all up in the air at this point. Like G2 didn't even qualify for New York. They didn't look very good. Envy beat them in the qualifiers. Yeah, it's online, I know, but G2 hasn't been looking that great. Navi's even up in the air at the moment.
Is it though? Or
yeah.
is it just waited to fucking lock in like a laser pointed gun
What?
targeted at your brain with pure pleasure, bullets to be fired en masse, 30 rounds a second?
I don't know. I don't even know, Duncan.
I think it's going to be sick. I think Navi's going to be a banger.
Here's the question: How do we free electronic? I think this is criminal that we don't get it. That we don't get to see electronic outside of 2 months out of the year.
Here's the thing,
his contract unfair? It was like I think it was 2.5 years or something. He's locked up until 2019, and maybe his buyout was too high or something like that. Is it unfair? Did he just sign something that was? He signed it himself. So
I mean, it's likely unfair. I mean, obviously he probably should have done differently, but that's always easy looking backwards. But it's probably unfair, as most contracts in esports usually are, especially when it comes to buyouts being commensurate with your salary that you're making.
Yeah, but why would it be unfair for the amount of time that he's locked into the contract? I think it's like till March 2019.
It's just unfair in the sense that this is a team that, flip side, that like doesn't really do anything throughout the year. Like they don't really focus on anything. They play in the qualifiers, but they always come out and say our only focus throughout the year is qualifying for the major. Like that's it.
I know
That's
Flipside are a shit team, but I'm asking about if the contract itself is unfair.
Oh, I haven't seen
he's
it.
on the.
The problem with that is that, like, again, it's like a relative term, isn't it? Unfair, because you have to like look at the industry, and I can say, this, as weird as this might sound, one of the reasons why Cloud9 was in the position they were in is because they had long contracts, and they were in a position where you don't have every option. It's not just like being in a fantasy world where you can pick and cut any player you want, And likewise, players on Team Liquid, big buyouts, long contracts. So the problem is, I feel like it just exists at all scales of the game. I mean, same with FaZe. So cadiaN just said, now what happens to Kiyoshima? Well, listen, if anyone understands the concept of capitalism, Kiyoshima has signed a contract with FaZe where I'm not sure whether it stipulates if he's in the lineup, he still gets the salary or not. I would guess he probably does. So if they really want to, if they want to pay him to sit and do nothing, that is entirely their prerogative to do that. And can you really feel that bad? Like, oh, you're getting paid a really good salary not to play on the team? That sounds terrible because he's a competitor, he wants to play. But in a mad way, like, that's kind of a fair exchange, right? If you get paid a fucking good salary for not even playing. So, like, I agree, in an ideal world, maybe this wouldn't exist, but I think it's at all levels. I think even the best teams in the world have ridiculous... Okay, here's one for you. So, when Richard did that story where he reported on the refresh teams like Astralis, etc., one of the details that they found was that some of these teams, none of the players have shares. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they don't have any. Apparently, I think if you have below something like 2 or 3%, it doesn't have to show. So they could have like 4% each, right? But 4% is not very much in contrast to how they build the teams. Remember when they were launched, it was like, these are player-owned teams, and yeah, they've got backing, but, this is the team, the players are going to be in charge. Well, it sounds, if you look at the history, like some of those players probably had more percentage in the past and sold that percentage to this company in exchange for presumably either literally a flat set of money or higher salary. Now, that might sound like not a big deal because we all know Astralis love the lineup they're in. They're a really good team. They're all making a great lot of money. But actually, in a certain world, let's say 2 years from now, Astralis, the team, was sold for a lot of money. They will look like idiots that they sold out their equity, Now that sounds weird because in a way, Is that a great contract setup? Probably not. They maybe had a better one, which they fucked up. And that's one of the best teams in the world. So I actually don't know that there's any team, if you look at them. Like, I almost think you can't have a fair or unfair contract, because at the moment it feels like it's just based on what your situation is. Like, everyone might say, okay, Virtus.pro, what idiots they are for locking in for 3 years. Well, they won't be if they suck dick for the next 1.5 years but get paid the highest salary in the world. They'll be the ones who are the unfair ones there, right? It'll be, if anything, it's eSports who was like, what the fuck, I have to pay these guys for 2 more years? It's kind of like people just they just wait until someone's thrown the dart and then they draw the suck around it like, that was fair or unfair. But after you know the result, So I agree. It probably is unfair, but that's just because we know he could get on Na'Vi, isn't it?
Yeah, and we didn't always know that, and he didn't either, probably.
I mean, I've been there, done that in a situation where I was contracted and not able to play on other teams and not released, basically. And I received my salary, so I mean, in that regard, I couldn't complain. Yeah. But was it what I wanted? Definitely not. I asked to leave the team. It was back in SK. I asked to leave the team when we were three players, me, Freeze, and Zillion, and I was not allowed. They said they wanted to rebuild, fair and square. That's okay. I signed a contract, so in that regards, not much to say. Mm-hmm. Then we got Magic's Boy and Muddy, and we played, and things started to become good. We survived the Pro League. We had 10 victories in the last 14 games or something, and we went to Fragbite Masters, knocked out. They were called Question Mark at the time in a best of 3. The Astralis guys, and took a map off Fnatic. And then after that, I was replaced by Pimp. And so to say, fair and square, that's okay. But then I asked if I could approach other teams and go to other teams because I had offers at the time. And they were like, nah, we want to keep you as a backup in case this lineup doesn't work. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ,
Like, the biggest problem, I'll put it like this. This is the big issue I have with the whole dynamic there, the power dynamic, is there is almost no player actually has the leverage that they could really demand these contracts be written differently. The reason why in real jobs you have to have a union to get certain laws put in place and certain rights for the worker is because what you have to be able to do is say no one will sign this contract. All of us collectively are saying none of us will, therefore you have to improve it. At the moment, if you're Electronic, who, remember, when he signed with Flipside, wasn't some superstar rising talent. It's during Flipside that he became really good. If he doesn't sign that, then they're like, okay, bye, we get someone else, see ya. Now you don't have even a platform to become really good on. So I feel like that's the big issue, is that at the moment, the only players I could see that could really drive a bargain like that is someone it'd have to be an amazing player who's integral to the team, and yet his contract's just ended now and he's going to re-sign with them. So that's a very, very, very small amount of the players that applies to. So as much as, fans might be like, well, I would just never sign that contract. Well, then if you know that a player who's almost as good as you is going to sign it, you don't really have any leverage at that point in time.
Yeah.
There's no real solution to this problem. That's why a player union is always a step within, the simple way to say it is this. In every traditional sport, at the beginning, the people who own the league make most of the money in the teams, etc. And eventually the players only make the massive amounts that they make in modern sports now, after you've had all the player union stuff for years and years and years and years. And that's you gradually work your end of the percentage up. And apparently in basketball and stuff, it's actually quite high. I think the players make 49% or something. But I bet that used to be 10% in the fucking 80s or something terrible like that, And Counter-Strike's a long way away from that, obviously.
Yeah, definitely.
What other big moves are there?
Zeus
to Na'Vi.
Zeus to Na'Vi. Fucking crazy, man. I didn't
believe. Do you believe?
I thought there was no chance that he would leave Gambit, but since he did, I think it's better that I think he has just as good of a chance with this Na'Vi, who probably now respect him even more, appreciate his value, and I don't think he could have gone farther with Gambit, and that was a roster that I felt like they were going to try everything they could to keep him. So I think this is pretty cool.
I have one question though. He was amazing as an in-game leader in Gambit, right? But theoretically, in the end of the old Na'Vi era, he wasn't the in-game leader, right?
Sure.
Stavix was.
Yeah.
I mean, not saying that he's not going to do well, but I'm just saying that I don't know if it has any influence. Maybe that's also why that he, at that point, valued how much Stavix had worth, and also now realizes what Kane has to worth.
Yeah.
So maybe he knows that he's going to lose some of his touch if he were to lose Kane and Gambit.
I also feel like now is the ultimate time. Like, he has got the perfect setup. Like, first of all, Seized is in the position that, like, Kiyoshima was when they brought him back in the phase, where it's like, you work hard, but now we need a player, and you know what, maybe we even need a player who works within the system, you know? And I think Seized at this point in time knows his career. Like, dude, he could have been in big fucking trouble right now if he wasn't back in Na'Vi, so he'll probably be really happy to do whatever Zeus wants. All of them, in theory, are all primed to be like, you here's the keys, you tell us what to do, you know? I think even simpler is like, dude, I played out of my mind for like 3 months and got nothing for it. So give me some ideas of what you want me to do.
I'm actually really, I guess kind of lost is a decent way to put it on this Zeus issue, just because, you know, it's a cool story from the major, you know, with his tweet and all, and getting cut from like the team he helped found to be the in-game leader of Gambit and win the major and lift the trophy. But I mean, this is a team that before the major was like essentially dead. Like, their boot camp was awful. Players all hated it. All the interviews that we've seen from these guys, all the Gambit players right now, you know, after Kane and Zeus departure, is that they didn't agree with the style of play that those two wanted, that they didn't really like how they wanted to form this team. So I guess I'm a little bit just confused on how much impact Zeus actually had on that lineup at the major as an in-game leader, because...
What do you mean? cadiaN said the boot camp was great. He actually, they blitzed like all of House of Cards. Names. Keep going. Yeah.
No, but like, yeah, this Gambit squad is like, how much, like, was he actually calling how he wanted to play? Like, I mean, we have to remember this major that Gambit wins is, you know, first of all, the group stage was Adren being absolutely batshit crazy individually to get them out of the group stage. Yeah. And then Mo has a monumental performance, you know, against Astralis to help them win a map. And then Hobbit actually goes nuts. And then Adren comes back into the fold and he's sick and everything like that. So when it comes down to it is like, how much impact does an in-game leader did Zeus actually have on this team? If they didn't agree with what Kane and Zeus wanted to do, if they didn't like the way they wanted to play, if the issues from the boot camp were stemming from the fact that they didn't agree on how to practice and how to prepare the way that the in-game leader and the coach wanted them to, how much of an impact, you know, is he actually having as a coach in that situation?
Well, you don't have to agree to win, right? You just have to listen or
adhere to listen.
Yeah, and I think for sure both the reason that we think that, or probably would agree that Gambit has no future even beyond this major, even though they won it. And that's, you know, partially due to the fact that we had these players come out, like especially like Adren, getting them out of the group stage and so on. Mo having a performance that he's never had versus top oppers in the finals and the semis. That Zeus moving on to another team is like, it's like, so we know that he would leave Gambit and probably have no future with Gambit. And in the future, I think with Na'Vi, I think his impact was tangible for sure. There was like a couple of rounds. There's that round famously where they didn't take that pause, but they were walking around on the eco, and then then Zeus said he decided to SK outside, and then it ended up being the exact right call. They ended up winning that game. They wouldn't have won the map without that leadership there. And there's probably way more to it that we can't see, but you gotta assume that and he also played really well himself. He had like 90 ADR in that series or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not doubting his like impact in the matches of being that leadership and that voice when the game is actually live itself. But when it comes to like choosing how the team plays and what you're actually putting to effect in practice, that's where I'm a little bit muddled on that impact. Because I'll tell you what, you're right. You don't have to agree to listen. You just have to like follow the strategies that are called. But I'll tell you, if you go through an entire boot camp and an entire practice leading up to an event for months, and you're not agreeing with how the team is playing, and the in-game leader is just like, listen, just fucking listen to me. I know what I'm doing. Like, I promise you, if you just buy into it for this event, things are going to go well. The one thing that'll get you to agree after the event is lifting the fucking major trophy. And if they're still disagreeing with something, then it's just kind of like that's where I wonder the influence of Zeus as an in-game leader on the tactics and everything. Maybe he's calling things that, you know, Adren and Hobbit and them wanted to do. Maybe they just said, fuck it, you're calling this. They maybe went the other way, right? Like, you don't have to agree to call the strat. So I'm not doubting he's going to be a good in-game leader. And I think definitely that round that you just mentioned on Train highlights how much of a voice and how much you need that kind of a leadership presence in the team. But I think it is just kind of interesting, the preparation of tactics and everything like that leading into the event with him.
And I think, you know, whatever Na'Vi wants to, like, if Seized or something disagrees with him or Simple disagrees with him, I feel like he would get away with winning more arguments now than he could before. Like,
oh, no one on that team is going to disagree with a single fucking thing he says. They're all
fed up of losing.
Drinking the Kool-Aid. Simple's on it.
Plus, even though people, it's funny that they never really addressed it publicly, despite all the things that both players said. But it seems pretty obvious that cadiaN and Simple just never worked in the same team personality-wise. Like, cadiaN, the entire time Simple was even in the team, would constantly give sort of backhanded compliments, like really weird ones, because you would think logically, if cadiaN was happy with the idea that he's like a star but not the star, then it'd almost be that thing of like, right, well, here's the young guy. So you'd almost go the other way. You'd be like, oh, no, you know, he's had his problems before, but he's improving, you know, and he's going to learn to play our way, and one day he'll be the star. He never did any of that stuff. He'd be like, oh, he's an amazing player, really skilled player. He's got his problems as a teammate. You know, there's always like some weird friction, and it always seemed to come from the cadiaN end of the equation. Like, I've actually never heard Simple. Here's the funny thing, okay. People can understand that Simple has personality issues, right? And he will just say whatever he thinks. Well, then what? They think he was magically hiding some secret hatred for cadiaN. No, he's never said anything publicly, though, until he was kicked from the team. So I actually think, bizarrely, that obviously, in theory, you wanted cadiaN in your team, but I think actually not having cadiaN actually might make Simple less of an issue in that sense, because it's pretty clear cut at this point. If you look at this lineup they have right now, you're all in on Simple. Like that, the whole point of why he's there is like he's going to be the star player, and the team is built around him. And I actually think, if anything, that's one thing I really want to see from Zeus, where I can't say I'm certain, is that Zeus always had a dominant AWPer in all his teams, but it was the dominant AWPer like a classical AWPer, someone who wants to be the primary AWPer, right? Simple's AWPing is obviously very, very different from having like a team built around you and taking a specific pick. That's not really what he does. But Zeus pretty much has to have Simple be the superstar player. So I want to see, how does Zeus solve that problem? I mean, I guess you can go ahead and say that in Gambit he had a very different team and he figured it out there to some degree. But obviously there's a massive upside to Zeus's time in Na'Vi now. Yeah.
I think there's also a lot of salt built up with cadiaN to see some of these passive-aggressive comments come out. And I think the only reason he wasn't more overt with it was because I interviewed Hiko at the MLG Columbus, and he was saying, I asked him, what's the team you want to play next? And it was whoever qualified or whoever made it versus with Na'Vi and whoever else. And he just said the only team that Simple doesn't want to play against is Na'Vi, because the only player in the world that he respects is cadiaN. And I think maybe at the beginning, he probably got cadiaN, recognized the love from Simple and so on. But I think Simple's pretty passive aggressive himself, or even if he tries to hide it, can't really do that good of a job. So as time went on, and he's was chipping away at him, and cadiaN never survived that period where he took like a short break because of that injury. I think maybe, him not being able to be super dominant, play on a team with Simple, deal with all these passive aggressive comments. I think that's the only reason we're even seeing some comments come out now.
Did you see that Reddit thread with all those Twitch clips of him talking about cadiaN being his hero? That that was the most fucking depressing sequence of Twitch clips I've ever fucking seen.
That was great. Like, you ever know that you're my hero? Then you never turned up to the boot camp. 4v5. Why am I the last alive? Fuck you, cadiaN. You are married, not to me. Goodbye. Bette Midler. There we go. And now the video has been demonetized for copyright infringement because I've actually sung at least 10 seconds worth of a song.
I have a thing. I have a question. Do you think that he might regret having all his teammates at the wedding? Those pictures is going to be live, and he just changed his team. Or do you think he's just nah, don't care?
I mean, he did play with most of them for 4 years, right? True. Outside of Simple. Yeah. Maybe it's a bit bittersweet to be going through the wedding album at this point.
But by the way, just to go back to your point, Moses, about Zeus as an in-game leader, one thing I truly don't understand is whenever you play them, whether it was Gambit or the Na'Vi lineup, they would always be very difficult to play against with the play style, very slow, methodical, these kind of things. You would even then start faking sides at 25 seconds and people would get thrown off by it. But when you then watch, he had some video on his YouTube channel with subtitles and
it was depressing, wasn't it? Because it wasn't as next level as you thought. You were expecting it was going to be
It was legitimately like this. Oh, guys, let's go fuck them on A. And then they ran after. Oh, we just fucked them on A. Now it's time to fuck them on B. And then they would just be screaming shit. And I was like, how the fuck are you winning games like this? This is not how it's fucking running in any of my teams. But maybe we should try it. Just be like, guys, let's fuck them on B. Let's fuck them on A. No strategies, nothing. Just like that. I don't understand it, honestly.
Or That is so next level. That was the mind game. It was like the Prestige or something. It's what he wanted to show you was the trick. That was the misdirection, you know.
Okay.
What he did was he like overlaid fake comms over the top. Like, oh, it's fucking... Really, it was like, Dosia going now at 45 seconds, flash remote. You know, it's actually like pure... It was like fucking pure, like Marines doing some sort of an operation on the ground. Like, on my command, 3, 3, 2, 2, 2. Like, that's what he did. But then he just overlaid it with like, X-Guard, fuck their throats. It's like...
maybe those are the names of the strats. Maybe like fuck their throats is a certain execute, fuck their skull is a different one, fuck their eye socket is a third one.
You can use the word fuck in so many different ways. What he would say is when he was like, we fuck into the A, that's like, you know, run through the short pipe on overpass, get through the connector into A. See, it's like there's a lot of code words built in there, you know. Then again, it was the same shit with the Pronax back in Fnatic, wasn't it? Like their timeouts, that was just him like, we're good, you know, guys. We can win this game. And then they're like, oh, thanks for making that point, Pronax. Unpause. We're ready to win the game now. And then everyone after the game, you're fucking genius, Pronax. How do you do it? How do you read the whole game like that?
The second best part, though, was that situation where Zeus is sneaking in underground.
Yeah.
And someone is hiding behind the stairs. And Dosia decides that I'm going to knife this motherfucker.
Oh, that was good.
Like, while he's starting to knife him, he kills Zeus, right? And that could have been avoided by a normal kill. And like when he knives him, he's just looking over. It's just like, fuck, this is not good, you know? This guy's gonna get real mad at me. And Zeus just screams, just fucking play, you know? Like, I think that guy has massive respect, more than any other guy, maybe. Seems like, to me.
I love it. I love that clip from the major of him just like losing his shit, like having a heart attack in the booth during like the Hobbit 1v1 or one of the Hobbit clutches. Oh, that was cracking me up. That was cool to see.
What do you think?
We could talk about Fitch.
Yeah.
I don't know. To be honest,
Some people said
I
they
have no
should try
opinion
and
there.
get Blade or someone, you know? What do you think about that? Do you think that Gambit
Blade
would be good?
I mean, if you're going to bring Blade into that team, if Zeus doesn't work, like you're going to be playing the same kind of style that Zeus seems to always want to play, is the slow, tactical, you know, late round execute style. And I imagine Blade has some pretty fucking nightmarish practices as well. When you think about how much, like how meticulous everything that he wants to do, how much he micromanages, I think that'd just be so tough as a player.
The problem is, being in Flipside is a cursed monkey paw scenario. So what happens is when you join Flipside, you get to make a wish, right? This is the amazing part. And once you sign the contract, it says the wish will come true. But what they don't explain is there's always a curse attached to it. That happens when you come to leave the team, okay? So, for example, Electronic joins. He's like, you know, I've got talent, but no one really sees my talent, right? My wish is I want the whole world to see my talent and, you know, the top best teams in the world to come knocking on the door. So he shows off his talent. They come knocking on the door. Nope, we're not going to let you go. The organization says, you know, the buyout's too high. Blade is like, you know, I'm not relevant as a leader anymore, but I want to be at the majors. I want to be a guy on a team that makes it to the majors. So he makes it every major, does dick all except like one time ever, and that's mainly because NIP was literally just like committing Harry carry, like, please, and they're cutting their own guts with the samurai sword. Enough about exist. So then you have Simple. He's like, I want to be so good when I play on Flipside that like I could just beat people single-handedly. He can, but ESL banned. Can't play at any of the majors. Gets wrecked, of course. Bondic is like, no one even knows who I am. So I want to be the best player on Flipside. Becomes the best player on Flipside, leaves, goes, joins Hellraisers. Why am I shit? Because you're not on Flipside. So you are the best player on Flipside still. Everyone gets fucked. Chara is like, I actually want to be an animal that can play Counter-Strike. And suddenly he can talk. He's got a name. He does get lost in like mazes, like animals do. You know, like where a rat goes down part of the maze, it gets electrocuted. Like, oh, don't go down there again. That's why he like fell into that bit of the stage. He had to learn not to fall down into open objects. You know, like whenever you're putting like cattle across a bridge, you've got to have like railings on the side, or they'll just be falling off all day long. You know, Lemmings. You never seen it? Classic Amiga game. So at this point, right, Chara, he's qualifying for majors. He's actually like doing shit. You know, everyone is cursed on that team. Everyone.
Why'd you make him a rat? Obviously a rat.
Obviously a rat, yeah. Obviously. See, everyone on Flipside is cursed.
That's true.
I just wonder how you do these things, honestly.
It's just what happens. But who were we originally talking about? I haven't been paying attention now.
We were deciding Gambit's new fifth, I think.
Yes, Gambit's new fifth.
Fitch.
What do you think? Adren being in game leader? I think it's a shame.
Shit, yeah, it's shit, isn't it?
That's actually probably the most underrated part of the CIS shuffle. Is everyone realizes, it kind of sucks that Electronic's stuck on flip side. Angel can't leave Hellraisers. Right, we all get these parts. But it's actually even more sick that, like, Adren and Hobbit, they're just in prison now, mate. Like, that team's just going to go nowhere. They're both such good players. And it's like Gambit and Flipside just keeping their similar lineups, sort of, and not combining in any way. It's just going to be a waste of time, it almost feels like,
Well, Hobbit's probably just going to get bought, right? Like, he finally has been bought by Gambit, which is probably a harder contract than Gambit put him in because Zeus's bio is only like 100K.
Okay.
So I think maybe they're very reasonable with their players. And I won't imagine that there's someone's going to leave Gambit, and it's probably going to be Hobbit. He is...
Nah, Hobbit strikes me as...
a rider?
I was going to say...
Yeah, that's what Hobbit's like. Hobbit's like, listen, I'm Gambit for life.
Actually,
he's got that tattooed on his chest.
This is the most depressing part about these roster changes from Gambit is Zeus leaving is there's no more pictures, awkward fucking pictures of like Zeus and Hobbit in bed shirtless. Like we get no more of that.
Oh man,
no, I lived for those pictures. Those were so good.
There was a picture of him like selfie in the mirror where Hobbit was wearing a backpack and it looked like a dad taking his kid to school.
That's like the G-rated. That's like the G-rated version of it. On the other hand, there's pictures of like Zeus and Hobbit like after a loss where you just know Zeus is being like, Come with Daddy for a minute. We're going to go to the side.
Let's come to the boot camp room, also known as the Devil Land Ranch.
Oh my god!
I believe that's where you were going with that, right? Reasonable.
And have a monkey bring you some cotton candy.
Tonight, I will play the role of the entry fragger. Anyway, enough of
that. Oh my
god. Anyway.
Meanwhile, Hobbit just got married. He's a fully grown human.
Did he? To who?
To who?
Yeah.
I don't think she's an esports.
Also, apparently that's how shit goes down at CIS. You just have a wedding, and then during the wedding at some point, when all your teammates are there, you're like, by the way, you're cut. Like, what the fuck? It's like, yeah, well, see ya. And the coach is cut. Oh, fucking hell. Why are you talking about that at a wedding?
I know. Could you imagine pulling Hobbit aside from the ceremony and being like, hey, listen, we got to talk about something important. We've got to figure out this Kane situation.
If anyone here sees any reason these two women, this man and this woman should not be married, Adren just stands up. Kane has to be cut. What's that got to do with anything? Kane's cut. Zeus said, what the fuck? He's coaching the team. And they're like, the vicar's like, can I continue with the summit? No, we have to kick him out. And also, Angel's not going to electronics. To Navi.
What is up with these contracts in that region just not being able to get out of? Is this like some like Eastern European, like you just can't contest the contracts?
Moses, you've missed the obvious joke because you were the one who made it in the first place. You remember, right? The stupid thing about Hellraisers is they've gone so balls deep on that theme that like, haha, the Hellraiser, the devil, haha, 666. That when they signed after Starladder, remember they had that picture where it showed a devil, like, and they were like signing their contracts in blood. You remember? So then people wonder later on, that's weird. Why can't this Angel guy get out of this contract with who is this? The Devil LLC. So, what is it? What exactly? Why can't he buy out? Why is the price so high? Your eternal soul. That's weird. He can't get out of this deal somehow. Apparently, he dies if he leaves the team. Like, brilliant. Yes, that whole region's mental. See, the irony is, here's the real irony. Is we've actually it's all our fault because we all want no conflict of interest. That's why there's all these huge buyouts. If we'd have all just seen the light and let ES Force buy every CIS team and make like Soviet Union Gaming or something, then we could have just had these players freely moving between teams. And we could have had one of them, like Flipside could be called Siberia, which is where you get banished to if you misbehave in the other teams. And until you've served your hard times in the fucking salt mines of Flipside, you don't get to come back to a nicer, like, I mean, normal life for, the proletariats like Gambit, But obviously, the fucking, what do they call the Politburo? That's like Navi, you want to be a high-ranking officer where you get all the sorts of cheese and sausages that you want and maybe black market goods from America, such as Lego for the kids. analogy didn't go anywhere at the end. It just stayed
as if you just made an analogy between like Soviet Union era politics and Counter-Strike.
Exactly. Well, it's all right, Moses. You'll be shipped off to the gulag with me when esports takes over.
I'm in a sinking ship with you.
Exactly.
In terms of the free moves.
And then when cadiaN naively says, "What is a support player?" we'll be like, "You cracking this fucking rock while we just watch for the guards to come. Now get on with that. Like, help! This is horrible. Yeah, that's being a support player. Now you've learned the hard way."
The tough way. What I will say is, in terms of the free player move things, like when, as you all know, when CS wasn't as contract advanced as it is nowadays, we had this thing in Denmark called the cadiaN effect, the cadiaN B effect. Yes. You remember it, Thorin?
Yeah. Where he would just join a team, they'd do well, right? And then
basically he would like join a team, and because he like was one of the very best players, like he would go to a team, and then they would just kick someone out to get him. And that guy would be like joining the team below, and they would kick one, and then it would like start the shuffle that way down. And then they would all settle, and then the week after he would just join a new team, and it would just continue for like a month where he would just be on 4 different teams. Yeah. And everyone would just go on the shuffle instantly just to get him. So they called it the cadiaN effect.
Okay. See, we could make a new effect. So like the quantum effect and that sort of world, we could have one like that. It's called the cadiaN subparticle effect, because originally they thought there were only atoms, right? And then they studied it and they looked and they saw no, there's electrons going around the atom. And they're like, that's probably the smallest, like lowest level you can get to. They kept looking with like microscopes and like electromagnetic, I don't even know, hadron colliders. I don't know why I've gone straight to that. But yeah, they kept going, right? And they kept finding subparticles, like around in you got like a quark and then you got like a subquark or something. So I only knew about like the top level of Danish CS. I knew about like TSM, Dignitas Australis. Then we went like Dignitas North. Then I found out there was Heroic and that. And then as we go down with cadiaN's career, we go down, we've got like the Trick, the Singularity level. Then we find out there's a level below that. There's teams below that. And as we go down, we find all the levels of reality that exist, and you're our guide going down the ladder, descending the ladder.
This is the shittiest episode of The Big Bang Theory ever. Not saying something, Duncan.
Maybe you can join Hellraisers. Sign away your life. You've got a choice. You either join Hellraisers and sign away your soul, or you join Flipside and you're in a cursed monkey paw scenario.
But Reddit is telling me that why would I join a team like Hellraisers? I would never be able to go out of the contract after, I would...
Exactly, yeah.
Would be stupid by me, In the situation I'm in right now, teamless, without anything, if they offered me a spot, I would have to say no. Simply.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
I think this is the end of the episode. We've pretty much mined this motherfucker dry. And...
Wait, one more.
Okay.
Anything to say about Hiko's team?
Oh, my God.
Okay, you want to go there, do you?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't personally have anything to say. I just wanted to know if you guys had anything to say about it.
Yeah, well, I know Wrath is insane. Like, he's like literally can't even play in Pro League because he's 2 months away from being 16. So he's got to miss some of the weeks or whatever, or maybe a month or something like that. Kid. Yeah, he's amazing though. He's played in Premier already. He was played on Bees Money Crew, which is like a legendary scrim team in North America. They've like in any qualifier you played them. I don't know about next swag. It's not exactly the same kind of player. He just like doesn't really miss any shots. I watched some of his demos. Just like, I wouldn't say dude does anything super special, but he hits everything. And yeah, he's super good. But like the team overall, it's like, what is Hiko doing right now? They don't have potential, I guess. I don't know. Like it just seems such a. It's like why should Hiko even play if he's going to play on a team like that?
He still believes.
But
somewhere
like
deep down,
he still believes. There was a certain point where he was only deciding to make a roster move or go to a certain team because he wanted to win because he doesn't know how much time he has left.
Yes.
Now he's taking the longest route possible back to winning a major.
Well, he has to prove that he has some worth to like the top teams, right? Like after the end of Liquid and after his time at Optic, I think every other team making a change was looking at him and being like, his gameplay like is outdated. Doesn't work. Like we haven't seen anything out of him to try and pick him up or to want him in our lineup. So I think that's kind of where he's at, where he has to prove that he can still be an effective player on that level.
Well, I heard that
he make it sweet. That he's gonna win a major. He's not gonna stop.
I don't know if this is a
Exactly. He
rumor,
had the
but I think I
balls.
heard that he turned down Energy because they didn't give him enough money or something like that.
He
Does
does
he need
love
money?
I believe
that's-
for him, it's like air. He needs a certain amount, a steady, regular interval, and occasionally, I don't know. That's the problem with this analogy is how do we factor in his greed? Maybe he's like Dennis Hopper in Blue Velvet, where he's just like taking nitrous. Hiko's got one of those, but of money.
But to agree that he has greed, does that imply that he wants money more than he wants to win?
I don't know if I would call it greed, and obviously I don't know like the specifics of the negotiation or anything. But remember when he joined Liquid, he had that same drawn out negotiation because he does have a personal brand and he does have his streaming brand that
He's worth a lot. Yeah. No
Yeah, and well, I mean, not even just that, but like maybe he has sponsors on his streaming that conflict with the team sponsors that he would have to be streaming under, and I think he's just very, very cautious about sacrificing that individual stream and brand for the team he's going to join. So I would imagine it has something to do along those lines, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the upside for me, here's the optimistic way to look at it. Like, yes, that team very likely isn't going to do much because so many players on it would have to be much better than they were in the past, or just like reinvent themselves, or this Wraith guy would have to be literally insane, in official games the whole time. Mm-hmm. But I will say this. The upside for someone like Hiko is, in theory, he gets a lot of say in how he plays and the role that he plays within the team, whereas that is really what he didn't have for a long time. Like in Team Liquid, they had so much talent, there was no room left for him to even be a star player. Obviously, his game didn't really suit it at the time. Optic was a terrible situation because he was just thrown into, he was replacing Stanislaw and all the other pieces were set in place. So you were never going to get away with that. So if anything, for me, this is the obvious time to see if there's anything left in the tank. If there is, then maybe he can go somewhere. If there isn't, I don't think we need to worry about any future teams. This is the last chance saloon in that sense, I think.
Yeah.
Sure. That's the good part about joining a team which is fairly, or actually, I guess, launders extremely low ranked in the Pro League.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to join someone like NRG, I don't know about NRG specifically, but I guess maybe still some guy like Breeze and Fugly would still be picking positions over him at times. Whereas he should be able to just say, I want this position, I want us to do this and that. And I mean, if he can then prove his worth there, he should be able to go up again.
Speaking of NRG, cadiaN, who's this Alan Jensen?
Alan Jensen. Yeah, ANJ.
ANJ.
Well, basically a guy that played at Tricked when they were starting to rebrand with Hunten and this. And he was actually initially removed due to lacking some components, I guess, of becoming a pro player. Then he ended up playing with the Singularity guys, who ended up winning Copenhagen games magically, surprisingly. No one knows how the fuck they won that event over teams such as Big, the Godsend Mix, Tricked, NRG. Who other good? I don't know. Some other good teams were there probably as well, but they were definitely not the team that were supposed to win. But also they lost the Danish championship, right, to Fraxus. Some of you probably don't even know what that team is.
Nope.
And that was one day before the Copenhagen games, so that says a bit as well. But he was by far the star player on that team, and he was consistently delivering 1.25 ratings in series against teams where they were underdogs, and he also were by far the MVP at the event. He is a hybrid player. He can both rifle and AWP, and he has really, really good aim. Really good aim. And he's not young.
So
he's not some 16-year-old kid, so hopefully he has some life experience. Yeah. So hopefully he has what it takes to move.
Feels like... Yeah, rolling his dice in North America. It feels like the first thing I thought of is remember when Devil Walk joined Luminosity, that North American team? Feels like NRG went overboard or overseas to this event, and they pulled him aside. They're like, listen, we need you, motherfucker. We got you. Get out of this Singularity situation. We'll pay you more money over here. Come make some dough. But he had some good stats. All right, cool. Yeah, I didn't know anything about him. I didn't realize that NRG even had a Danish player. That's why I asked.
We were supposed to pick him for the team I was talking about with Valde. Me, Valde, NJ, Tensky, and potentially Pimp as well. Was supposed to be a lineup.
Not bad, yeah.
Not bad.
Oh, man, sweet.
Dignitas rejects unite. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. There is one last topic we haven't discussed. How about this one, Moses? If you're talking about Gambit, how about the fact that Immortals is literally imploding as we speak, and potentially could have had a liege as well, who apparently now speaks Portuguese.
Zeus's master plan is what I heard. Taught a liege Portuguese while he was on Liquid.
See, I figured he just learned it so he could just say, please no, I'm not Hiko. Hiko's room is 7A.
Oh my god.
At that EPL, you know.
So he's safe at the next major.
Yeah, don't kill me, please. I wasn't even... I wanted to restart the game. Please. Lo siento. No restarto. I don't know. That's why I assumed he learned Portuguese, you know?
I mean, dude, Immortals imploding is it's pretty wild, isn't it? But I mean, I guess it was always in the cards in the sense that, you know, FNX. It feels like FNX just cannot be teamless in the Brazilian scene. Like, despite all of his issues, he is just a very good player, and like it does seem kind of weird that he's out, but it just seems so weird that they're doing it at this time. Like right after they just got to the grand finals of a major, it seems like that would smooth over some issues at least until the next event, right? I mean, maybe they're trying to take advantage of the player break, but I don't know. I think part of it has to do with like the personality. Like, remember, I mean, there were players going out to the bar at the major the night before the grand finals. FNX is someone who's known to do a lot of partying, and it just seems like that's a relationship that exists outside of the game that they want to have, that like a friendly person on the team in the actual lineup.
It's just so weird after they had a really good result, though.
And after KNG just signed the contract with Immortals, like he literally just signed on like a week ago. Like, you didn't think to just wait a week and make sure this is the lineup you want to side with. It's not like, so guys, are we actually gonna ditch this team, or should I sign? Should I wait?
Aaron's some people saying that the Twins are out now, or what?
No, there was that report that like the Twins and KNG all asked to like leave Immortals or like bring FNX in. Like there's some massive inner turmoil.
But I saw you, Thorin, giving credit to them for realizing that maybe this major run was not how it's gonna pan out for the next couple of events. Yeah. And I think you can say that then for maybe both Gambit and Immortals, that even though they both made it to the finals, Gambit ended up winning. They both realized that they had some problems within the team that at some point would force them to make a change anyway. Yeah. So why try to ride a wave that is...
No, I agree. It's just very surprising, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just normally this is the sort of thing you say, and then players don't do it because for whatever reason, they're friends with a player, or the worst one, obviously, this is what North did for a long time, is that they just have brainwashed themselves into believing it's going to work. Like, no, you have to understand, you know, something went a little bit wrong, but we're a great team, and you know, we've really practiced that. And no, he isn't underperforming. What are you talking about? You just can't see the subtlety of what he does. You know, all that shit. That's why I always say, like, listen, I'm not sure that's all great inside the TeamSpeak server, but like, you sound like an idiot when you tell people outside the server all that shit, you know, if it doesn't come true. So, like, the problem Immortals have is I don't know where they go at this point in time. Like, if any of those players leave the team, who the fuck do they get into the team?
Well, that's the thing. I think if you're Immortals, right, like, you can't let those three leave the team. Like, you have to keep them. I think if it's really just about playing with FNX, I think the only option to really explore at that point, if all the reports are true, which I don't know if they are, would be, you know, who we making space for, like who's leaving for FNX. Because I mean, you can't just like gut your team and let the three of them leave. Not to mention, I mean, yes, there are other Brazilian teams like currently trying to rise the ranks in North America, but none of them are ready to fill the gaps and be like a top 4 team even in the North American region.
That's why the part about Elige actually wasn't as crazy as it initially sounded, because that doesn't make any sense in terms of he's going to play for an all Brazilian lineup. Yeah, that part's very weird, because like, put it this way, if he's had fucking cultural clash with Simple, enjoy playing with 4 fucking Brazilians, mate. You're going to have a good time there. Also, I haven't seen you at the bars at fucking 2 a.m, so you better raise that tolerance, boy. Otherwise you're not going to survive this first tournament we're at. And then, but here's the reason though. But here's the reason why it might work though. Is because I can understand why Immortals was interested in the move. Because if you know that guy who's the owner of Immortals, Noah Winston, he's the guy who's even openly said the only reason he got a Brazilian team in Counter-Strike is because that was sort of the best team available to him. Like, it was the best upside, basically. He's someone who's totally all in on the idea that if you can, you should try and have players from the region you're marketing to. So, like, if it was up to him, if there was a team good enough that he could sign, he'd have an NA team, mate. So I think for him, it would have logically made sense to have Elige, because Elige is so young, and maybe in the future, you just transition the team to being mainly North American or something, but he's got Elige at that point in time. So I could see from the Immortals side why they'd at least be open to exploring that if it had been possible.
But
Yeah,
what I
the
don't
communication
understand
was
is signing this Holby guy. Where does that come from? Like, he's playing in Europe, and I've not heard about him ever. I checked up his stats. He legitimately has 20 games on HLTV. 15 of them is against other Portuguese teams, and the 5 against international teams, he didn't perform well. So where does this come from? That the team that made it to the grand final of a major, who's
I know what
ranked
we've
top
done
10 in
wrong
the
here.
world?
I know what we've done wrong here again. Remember, the whole world that Immortals live in is 2 a.m. at the bar last call. So obviously this Harvey guy's a fucking legend. This one time he drank these 4 tequila slammers and then had like 5, Crown vodka or something in a row. And then after that, this mad lad had a vodka Red Bull. And you know what? Next day, he was all right in the official game in the World Championship. Oh, what have I done in the World Championship? Why do I keep saying in the World Championship final? Why in this scenario would they be out drinking before the World Championship final that they lost? The World Championship final that they lost. Oh, sorry, I got caught in a loop there. So it's weird. I don't know why I kept doing that. It's had nothing to do with the point. But anyway, you see the point. Is that obviously, that's all you need to know. Like, at this point, Immortals is like the fucking fall of Rome at this point. The level of decadence they must be in if FNX is fucking calling the shots. This guy, he's the fucking emperor at the end of the world as everything goes to shit, who's deciding the lineup. Like, yeah, I'm bringing in Harvey and Elige. So, what?
Dude, I didn't even fucking see this release, this news that Horvey said. I don't even know who the fuck Horvey is. I'm seeing this on HLTV for the first time. I didn't know it was this bad.
Doesn't make sense, right?
Right, here's the thing. If
I'm
he
so
actually
confused.
if he becomes sick now, what Moses is saying right now is going to be in a video like, who the fuck are you? This is Harvey guy, and that's going to be like,
I tried that.
the trophy.
I tried that.
Yeah, okay.
The Stewie announcement. Man, I didn't even say a word. I was eating cereals. I took it like my spoon up to my mouth. I did like this with the head, and I closed down the page. And every time someone says something about Stewie, it gets linked. It's stupid. Man.
Attaboy. You've memed yourself. How's it feel?
Bad.
Some high quality content.
Yeah,
I think this is the end, right? Is this the end?
This feels like the end, Duncan.
Okay. Not just of Immortals, but of the show. Right, so I clarified that, and goodbye.
Hey guys, Tempest here. Just a friendly Canadian reminder to keep force spying, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube.